Hello there. This week's episode of This Is Only a Test is brought to you by Automatic. What is Automatic? Well, it's a tiny little piece of hardware that brings your car into the 21st century. Welcome. It works with any car made after 1996, and installation takes seconds. Just plug it in to your OBD port, which is usually below the steering wheel. And after you pairing it with your smartphone, either your iPhone or Android phone, you'll have access to a wide range of valuable information. What does it do? Well, using the app, you can keep tabs on your driving habits and fuel expenses. You can find out what that check engine light means in plain English. That's very useful. And also access automated home services like Nest and IFTTT. Connect Automatic to apps used every day. Everything from filling expense forms to fitness trackers. And they also have crash detection. Automatic can detect a crash and call help for free. A human will even stay on the line until help arrives. Go to automatic.com and type in the code TEST20. That's TEST20. TEST20. Why is the code TEST20? That's because this podcast this is only a test. And if you use that offer code, you will get 20% off purchase. Normal price is $100, but if you use the code TEST20, it'll only be $80. There's also free shipping and a 45-day return policy. So thanks Automatic for sponsoring this week's episode of This Is Only a Test. And now,
hey, let's start the show.
For Thursday, April 7th, 2016, welcome to This Is Only a Test, the official podcast of Tested.com. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, Norman.
Good morning, Norm.
I'm Norm.
Did you say that Automatic talks to Nest?
Oh yeah, dude.
I didn't know that.
So it knows where your car. There's two things that Automatic does.
Whoa,
that's awesome.
sellouts. The ad reads over.
I'm not getting paid for this. I can talk. This is a product I use every day.
I'm not getting paid for this either.
Look, it tracked my mileage. So when I needed to submit mileage, so I could deduct that from my taxes last year.
Yep.
After I spent 3 months driving all around Northern California, I was able to just say, okay, this drive was work, this drive was work, this drive was work, this drive was work, and I could send those to my accountant. And then that mileage just came off of the money that the government owed me.
I gotcha, but why the thermostat
Did you save
connection?
more than $80?
I don't know, probably.
Probably.
I mean, I drove
then it
a
was worth
lot.
it.
I
There you go.
drove to LA a couple of times.
Yeah.
So it knows when you hit the geofence around your house. So if you're heading home in that general vicinity, it sends a message to the Nest, and the Nest turns on your air conditioning if you have air conditioning.
Really?
I live in California, so I don't have air conditioning.
I don't either.
Yeah, so it's less useful for you.
All right, let's stop selling out about the sponsor, and let's talk about the movie that one of our friends wrote.
Yes.
Man, nobody said they were going to be AT-ATs. Or do you guys go with the more traditional AT-AT?
I say AT-AT.
I can switch before. I know it's not cool to say AT-AT, but I like saying the acronym.
They're calling it a teaser for Rogue One, right?
So this is the teaser trailer, which traditionally means the first footage, the first reveal trailer. Which, when you say teaser trailer, it can be anything from a 30-second no audio,
Right.
just the logo clip. Which I think technically for Rogue One, that's what they showed fans at Star Wars Celebration last year,
Okay.
which was the specially rendered scene of what looked like a Forest moon of Endor, and then the Death Star in the distance. But of course, it wasn't Forest. That's Death Star 2. So this is Death Star 1, and this is the first full. I'm going to call it a trailer because there's a lot of footage.
I agree.
It's very exciting, and it's a Star Wars story coming out this December.
It like if you think about other Star Wars teasers through the years, like the one for the Phantom Menace was a banger, right? Like it showed the robots, it showed some planets, it showed some spaceships, it showed a lightsaber.
Edited. But yes, it had a lot of footage.
It was a good teaser.
Do you remember how it opened?
Darth Vader was breathing over top of it, right?
No.
Yeah.
The Phantom Menace trailer was the one that had the Gungan smoke
Yeah, that was the one.
swamp that opened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't like that at all.
Yeah, you saw the first shot of Amidala's ship.
Yeah,
All
the
of-
shiny ship.
Yep.
You did see Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon back to back with the lightsabers out
Yep.
in the droid's case. And those being the first time we saw lightsabers in any capacity. This is before YouTube. This is when you had to download it on QuickTime somewhere or Real Player.
Trailers.apple.com.
Dude, I went to a movie to see that teaser. I don't
I
even
did
remember.
too,
Like the movie
probably.
was a Bruce Willis movie that they showed the cornet. I don't remember a thing about that movie. But
Wait, let's guess the movie. It must have been around
It's like
1997.
16 blocks or something, probably,
That
right?
sounds right. I think that might be it.
Oh my god.
And they showed the teaser before and after the movie.
After?
So nobody would leave. Yeah.
What?
Like, well, they wanted you to eat popcorn.
Right.
As a way to get people to watch the credits of a Bruce Willis movie?
I don't know.
I don't think theaters can't get away with that anymore. The workers need to get in there and clear out the crap that people are too lazy to throw away themselves. Which
Yeah,
is a stupid
I'm
thing
glad
to
you.
do.
I'm glad you fall on the side of throwing your own garbage away at the movie theater.
The
that
people
angers
who work
me.
at the theater are the people who get the least amount of appreciation anywhere. And I know a lot of them are like high school students. It doesn't matter.
You mean on
There's
Earth?
still
on
people.
Earth?
They're the absolute.
I don't think that's
not
true.
not on Earth, but like people you interact with
Okay.
or you're in a daily basis
Okay.
or a regular basis. Like I feel bad for all those people who have to deal with the shit that people leave in theaters.
Right
and the
on,
mess-
man.
And the messes.
Yeah, dude. You should thank them when you leave the theater.
Yeah,
Because
I
they're
do.
usually waiting for you to get out.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Not waiting for you to watch their Star Wars
But
trailer.
Rogue One.
Rogue One. So this is the movie that our friend Gary Whitta worked on, wrote.
Hold on, I got the 3 movies it premiered in. The Phantom Menace trailer.
Okay, all right. Let's hear this.
It's The Siege was the Bruce Willis film you referenced.
Ooh, yeah.
It was
There
also in
goes.
front of Meet Joe Black, home of the Joey's famous loop of Brad Pitt getting hit by the car,
Good movie.
and The Water Boy by Adam Sandler.
That's what I saw in front of.
Arguably the last funny Adam Sandler movie.
That's a 4-quadrant trailer reach.
They literally hit everybody.
You got the kids who want to see the Adam Sandler comedy and peak Adam Sandler. You got the Brad Pitt fans and the drama, and then you got the action fans for The Siege.
I disagree. I think that the trailer was the draw, and they got people to go see those movies for that reason.
I think that's correct.
In high school, I remember waiting in line to see 13 Days to see the first Lord of the Rings trailer,
There you go.
and then leaving.
What was 13 Days?
That was the Kevin Costner, whatchamacallit?
You didn't
It's
see it?
JFK.
Oh, the Oliver Stone thing?
No. It wasn't JFK. It was the Bay of Pigs movie.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that.
Oh yeah, that looked good. But back to Rogue One.
Yeah.
Back to Rogue One. We'll eventually get through talking about this trailer. Our friend worked on it, wrote it.
I believe he titled it.
He did.
He
title.
did.
I think
Yeah.
he titled it. I gotta like.
He
split,
tweeted.
like, let me split my brain all the things. I don't know anything that no one else doesn't know.
None of us know anything.
Right.
Gareth Edwards is the director, who directed
Godzilla, the dope
Godzilla.
Godzilla movie from a couple years ago.
And I believe it was an idea that was come up by like one of the old ILM guys. It might have been John Knoll or Dennis Muren. I don't want to get it wrong, but it's an interesting idea because it's how the Death Star plans were stolen.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the Bothan Spies. That's the second Death Star.
Right. Well,
Everybody
that's what-
thinks that's
Oh.
Bothan Spies.
So I thought that.
but that girl, she's not Bothan.
That's not what Mon Mothma says at the end
No.
of
Mon
Star
Mothma
Wars
has
1?
only appeared in Jedi.
Yeah, this is only the
Remember-
second time we've
Really?
seen.
Remember, Leia talks about the plans.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Remember tradition. Now, previously, prior to the great canonizing of the early 2010s, as far as I know, the canon story of how the Death Star plans were stolen was that Kyle Katarn broke into a secret Imperial base in the opening scene of Dark Forces, the first Star Wars first-person shooter, and that was it.
And stole the plans,
and then
that was
flew
it.
away in his
And then
spaceship.
put
That was
him-
it.
And
He
put it
beamed him
on
to-
the what was the ship called? The Tanif 4?
No, his robot buddy, when he escaped the moon that the plans were on, beamed it to the Tantive 4, and that's the last you heard of it.
Man, long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, you really couldn't make copies of files. Once
Well, I
you
mean, they
stole
didn't
the
have
files,
DRM.
That's it.
Yeah.
So this is about that, and it's interesting because what they've changed since last year is they're calling it a Star Wars story. It's basically their anthology series. We know there's going to be a Han Solo origin story, young Han Solo movie. I think the Phil Lord and Chris Miller are working on that. The 21 Jump Street guys. I don't
That
expect
sounds
it to be a
good.
comedy, but those guys are great writers and have great ideas.
I'd watch a Han Chewie buddy comedy.
Well, I'm sure it'll be in the Star Wars tone. But
Yeah.
what's interesting about this is that as great as Force Awakens was, This is true return to original Star Wars
Yes.
universe.
Dirty
Those are the
universe.
stormtroopers I
Those are
recognize.
original stormtroopers. Original people are calling out the authenticity of the Star Destroyer designs, and it's really an opportunity for them to pull back not only the design assets but also concept art, like the Ralph McQuarrie stuff, because they're talking about like Star Wars as Star Wars, Episode 4 era, right around Episode
Before Episode 4.
right before Episode
Yeah.
4, but like that era. It's not 30 years later. It's not 30 years before. It's right there. But the tonally, it's reads Star Wars, but it's also an opportunity for them to go experiment. You know, Star Wars has traditionally been it's an adventure movie, and this, well, it's a it still has adventuring elements.
Because it's not a part of the chapters.
Exactly. It doesn't have to be about the Skywalker family. It can be a heist movie. It can be a war movie.
Yes. Which is why I originally supposed that maybe they won't even open with the Star Wars crawl, just to set it apart. Although, having seen this, I suspect they will open with the Star Wars crawl.
Look, they're never going to make a Star Wars movie that don't open with Star Wars crawl.
Everything Star Wars opens with Star Wars, bam, and
Everything?
everything. Even the ILM Vive demo
Right.
had
I mean,
virtual
it's
reality
true.
Star Wars crawl.
It's true.
That crawl is the greatest addition to cinema in the last 50 years.
I appreciate our ability to talk about this trailer without spoiling too much.
From what's in the trailer?
I mean, do we want to talk specifics?
No. Just go watch the trailer. It's good. If you don't want to watch the trailer, don't watch the trailer.
It's
That's
so
cool,
good.
too.
It's so good. You're going to want to watch it a few times.
It just looks beautiful and looks Star Warsy.
Yeah.
There's so many cool just elements like, oh my god, that character, or
Yep.
not specific like name character, but that type of character, that costume, that robot. Like they feel like Star Wars. And it's a great new hero. It's Felicity Jones plays the protagonist. Now here's a quiz: what is her name in the film?
Ray.
No.
Well,
Is she Ray's mom?
We don't know that yet from
Maybe.
the trailer.
She
right?
could be.
You
Yeah,
know
they
that-
kinda look the same.
Yes,
Is
they
it
say her
mentioned in the
name.
trailer?
Yes,
They
it's like
bo-
the very first thing.
Oh, right.
You just don't listen when women talk.
They
What?
both have space English voices. Is this what your special lady friend told you when you were like, "What's her?" Have you done this quiz already today, Norm?
No.
Okay.
Jyn Erso is
Jyn
the
Erso,
name
that's
of her
right,
character,
that's right.
and she's in Mon Mothra. So we did say Mon Mothra's in it. The teaser.
She seems like a
Um,
badass.
She looks exactly like Mon Mothra.
Yeah, crazy.
And the actress who plays her also played Mon Mothra in
Mon Mothma,
Mon Moth. Is it Mon Mothma?
not Mon Mothra.
Mon
Mon
Mothma.
Mothra is a
Mothra's
is a
Godzilla.
kaiju.
You're right. I'm mixing
Yeah.
up Godzilla characters. She should just be changed to Mon Mothra because of Gareth Edwards.
Look, when they do the kaiju Star Wars crossover game in
Then
like
there-
10 years,
then
it's
there
going to be
will
Mon
be- yeah.
Mothra, and she's
Right.
going to have the big white wings.
That's for my fan fiction. Mon Mothma, the actress who plays her, also played her in Episode 3 in a deleted scene.
Oh, really?
So
Interesting.
how's that? And Episode 3 was 10, 11 years ago. So it
How it works out.
it totally works out.
Life finds a way.
There you go.
I'm very excited about this. Somebody pointed out that they did the Plinky piano music, which is now the new way to bring franchises back with their score.
What does that mean?
You know, like the Jurassic Park, they did the Plinky piano music trailer.
Oh,
the
piano
like they play the
version.
theme,
They
but
play
on the
the-
piano, and they play it real light and
Slowly.
Yeah, and very slowly.
As a way to slowly bring you back. So I was thinking about this also in the 2 hours since the trailer came out. Music-wise, there were a lot of new themes in Force Awakens. You had memorable themes.
Ray's
Ray's
theme's good.
theme is
Yeah.
really excellent. I think Kylo Ren's theme is pretty good. But
Little whiny.
we haven't had so much. Star Wars has been reusing and mixing original John Williams.
That's
score.
not true though, because like Imperial March came in with Empire, like that. I think Imperial March is the
I'm
best
saying
song
from
of the original trilogy.
From original trilogy.
I mean, that's the way. They've made 8 of these movies, man.
The only thing from the prequels that stuck was Duel of Fates.
Is that the one with the choir? Mm-hmm. I hate
Yeah.
that. I don't like
You
that
don't
at
like
all.
that one?
No, I felt like that was too far away from what I was used to.
It's a little Tim Burton-y. See, this is why they don't change the music. Jeremy, it's Jeremy's fault.
Fine, good.
Yeah, the fans
no.
like the old stuff.
It's that damn
so
Jeremy kid
12 years
again.
from now, when we have 12 new Star Wars movies out, I would
The
hope
thing is,
that there will
dude,
be a new memorable
John
score.
Williams is old. Is the bad thing.
I didn't know what to expect from this trailer because it is the first anthology film. But if you were right, if we're going to get a Star Wars movie every year until they stop making money, if they're as good as this, I'm happy. This is a good thing.
Did you expect them not to be as good as this?
I didn't know what to expect. I thought they could have gone, like you said, in any direction. I mean, they could potentially, do
Well,
something.
they will eventually.
So
They're
Like,
already-
eventually there'll be a Guardians of the Galaxy that's a comedy, right?
as much as I think that the anthology kind of brand, a Star Wars story brand, and the off-year brands from the main episodes
Yeah.
allows them to take risks, Disney doesn't see this as, oh, we expect this to make a little less money than episode 7.
Right.
It has to make $1 billion.
Billions
worldwide.
of dollars,
Like,
yes.
There's no, oh, this isn't the Avengers. It's just Captain America: Civil War, so it can make less money. No, it's Iron Man 3. It'll make $1 billion. It's Avengers 2. It'll make $1 billion. Like every year is going to be a big event.
I just think having lived through the trailers, the prequels, that being a part of who I am now, having been through that, I'm always a little bit, nervous about a new Star Wars movie.
I'm glad your children don't share your cynicism.
No, they love those
I know
prequels.
they
What's
do.
with the kids?
Yeah, they have no taste. Kids these days,
Wow.
they got no taste.
I'm just never going to show my daughter the prequels. She's not going to know they exist until she gets
Well,
to
you
college.
can raise her on Rebels.
I could.
So yeah, it's not a bad show.
I know. I've blasted through the first couple of seasons while I've been doing foo stuff.
So I think your point about them eventually doing off like
there's going to be
genre experimentation. I think that's better reserved for the non-film projects to start, like things like Rebels, which is tied to canon now.
Well, yeah. If you look at what they did with Marvel, where they have the really hardcore, gritty stuff on Netflix, where the audience is a little more adult, and then the films are mainstream and 4-quadrant, and then there's animated stuff, and there's they're going to exploit this franchise in the business sense of the term to get juice every penny out of it that they can, and as long as the quality stays up, I'm kind of okay with that.
Do you think we will ever see an R-rated Star Wars movie?
Probably.
I think only at a point where we get 2 Star Wars movies a year. I don't think that there will be a standalone R-rated Star Wars movie by itself one year
Yeah.
without a PG-13 Star Wars movie.
Or if
out
the
that
audience
year
starts
also.
aging out of Star Wars. I mean, if they can't capture a young audience and the audience gets older, then they'll start making R-rated Star Wars. There'll be, Kill Bill Star Wars edition where Rey goes through and starts hacking.
I'm going
up
to
the
rephrase
Empire.
that and say not aging out of Star Wars. When Star Wars, the audience becomes fully fills the entire spectrum.
Yeah.
From 5-year-old to 70-year-old. So when the first generation, when it fully saturates, then they're going to have both the kiddie movies, the teenage movies, the young adult movies, and the gritty adult movies.
So to take the other side of the devil's advocate here, this is the grim future that was foretold in the early '80s by people like Coppola when they were talking about the corporatization of Hollywood and the fact that things were being designed based on revenue projections rather than artistic merit, which arguably was a little bit naive and has always been the case. But
I think those things aren't necessarily mutually exclusive. Like driving forces, what can be driving forces in Hollywood and in the entertainment industry doesn't exclude quality production and storytelling.
Anyway, this is a still entitled conversation. We talk about this with Adam sometime.
Well, you know what's a grim future? Indeed.
I love grim futures, man.
Well, the grim future is a world where Google gets to do whatever it wants on April 1st.
Wait, what?
And people just eat it up. And thankfully, that wasn't the case this year because last Friday was April Fool's Day. Will's now favorite holiday.
I don't think so, but
Maybe favorite date?
Maybe favorite date.
Favorite date? Google every year pulls some crazy April Fool's joke.
Usually multiple divisions pull multiple jokes.
Yes. I don't know if they compete, but sometimes some divisions
Probably.
launch things like Gmail. Great.
That was so dumb.
That was legit.
Nobody's going to get a gig of storage for email. That's stupid, Norm.
Well, this past April Fool's, they also did something to Gmail, and they added a button. They swapped out a button. In Gmail, when you send an email, there is a button that says send and archive.
It's actually a lab you can flip on, I think.
Maybe it's you
Yeah.
can flip it on, and that button was swapped on April Fool's to do the Gmail mic drop, which was
so dumb.
sending, I think, a picture. It was an
It was a
animated
GIF.
of a minion from the DreamWorks, or not DreamWorks, whatever whoever owns that movie, Minions movie, dropping
Despicable
a mic.
Me.
Yeah, Despicable Me. There it goes. Dropping a mic, and It was supposed to be funny, and
Well, it also shut down the thread. It would
archives it forever.
It
It's
would,
this one right
it would
here.
unsubscribe you from any replies.
I believe it's from Minions, not Despicable Me. Is the actual GIF?
right, and people who didn't realize that was turned on for April Fool to use the send and archive button.
Which is hundreds of millions of people, billion users for Gmail.
Many of them got in trouble, and were very pissed off, very unhappy.
People. So Andy Bio, who's the founder of XO and has worked at Yahoo and a bunch of other places over the years, had picked this up because he was using Gmail at midnight. And the two things that are bad were that it sent the message that was funny, and then it was an irrevocable. You couldn't unarchive that image, that message. It was gone forever. So people had been sending like serious messages about like family deaths and stuff like that, and they hit the send and archive. And then they send them. I'm so sorry. Here are the arrangements for your mom's funeral. We'll be ready to receive the remains at 3:00 on Tuesday. And then they hit the button, and there's a fucking minion dropping a microphone in a queen costume, and it's hilarious, but also really, really, really ill-advised and awful.
Now, I didn't see the button. Is it really hard to distinguish between the mic drop and the send button?
It's not that. It's that it's a basic UI rule, right? You don't change the UI.
Of course, I
in that
get
way.
it. I get it. I want to know what it looked like. I'll find an image.
I think it just said mic drop.
Okay. And it was only in Gmail. It wasn't in Inbox, right?
No, because and look, if you're not using Inbox now, you're fucking up.
Yeah.
So
So-
Inbox is awesome.
Right now,
That's why I didn't
there's
see
when
it.
you type in line for a message, there's a blue square rectangle in the bottom left-hand corner that says send.
Yeah.
If you enable the lab, there's an orange button that says send and archive. For the mic drop day, it was just an orange button that says send, and then with a picture, an icon of a mic falling, which didn't tell you what it meant.
Oh wow. Okay. And it's only for people who had the lab enabled.
No, everybody got it. It superseded the lab. So this lasted like 45 minutes. They flipped it on at midnight, and it was gone by 1 a.m. So most people didn't see it. But yeah, it was pretty uncool. On the scale of things that were uncool.
Well, I think the problem is that Google, because it's such a ubiquitous service outside of China, they can't test these things. They can come up with ideas, and they can't just say, let's deploy to 5,000 people and see what the reaction is and then move it to a better location. They have to make these judgment calls that apply to hundreds of millions of people, sometimes ill-advised because they have to do it for this joke this day, or they want to do it for this joke in this day. And in this case, they made a bad judgment call.
All right. So there was a little graphic that comes up the first time you hit reply all that explains what the thing does.
Yes.
But you can easily exit.
Yeah,
out of
just
that.
blame the people. Blame the people.
So there was a bug, Norm. There was a bug. If you open a new compose menu, press send and mic drop with no recipients, saw an error message, edited the message by adding recipients, and then press the regular send button, it would still mic drop. Seems like an unlikely
wow.
series of events.
Sounds like a beta feature.
Yeah. So mic drop was a bad idea. You know what was a good idea, though?
What was a good idea?
I think the funniest thing I saw, one of the guys that posted this in our team Slack a little while ago, is actually a Google, the kanji keyboard that Google built for Android is called Flick. And it's basically a series of squares, and you tap in the center for one character and up, down, left, or right for one of 4 other characters. So you can write kanji very, very quickly and very efficiently with just an on-screen keyboard, which is a relatively new development. They made a physical version of that keyboard that looks like a real thing. So it's got a bunch of little 5-way switches that kind of are rockers. Mm-hmm. They tilt out to the sides, and you can tap down on them. And then halfway through, you're like, oh, that's kind of interesting. I can see how, like, if you like using this interface for this, you might want to have a physical version for your desktop, right? Mm-hmm. Instead of using a 101 keyboard. And then they get to a little magical looking dongle that looks like a Bluetooth earbud that they're like, and if you put this on any grid shaped item, then you can do Flick with that. So it starts out with like a piece of paper with grid lines on it, and then they go to like the rice paper wall dividers, and then eventually it's just a guy standing in front of a glass window overlooking a city grid, doing it on the city grid. So it was pretty funny. I laughed.
You like that?
I thought that was actually funny.
I liked Automatics. Speaking of our sponsor, did you see that one?
No.
They pivoted and became manual. And rather than selling an electronic device, they sold a booklet and a pen
Oh, that's good. That's exactly what
for,
that
for
thing
you
does.
to write down.
To write
Yeah,
down your
write down
mileage.
your
Here's my mileage.
Which is exactly what my dad did for my entire childhood.
Oh, yeah.
Every time he'd pull into a gas station, he would write down his
Really?
mileage. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Do they also include someone to sit by your side to nag at you when you broke when you
Too
tap the brakes
fast!
too hard?
You need just somebody with a little beeper. Norm, when you have a kid, they'll do that. My daughter's like, too fast, Dad. Slow down, please.
Go watch Dora.
I not like hills.
Wow.
She's bad at grammar, too.
Wow.
3-year-olds, man.
Other things that Google did outside. Oh, you want to talk about any more April Fools?
Done.
Done. We're done with it, right?
Can we
next
talk
year.
about my?
Good.
Can we talk about my? I'd say April
Wow.
Fool's news.
Well, how about in the VR minute?
We can put it in the VR minute. It's VR minute's probably more apropos.
Are you afraid that the listeners will fall off and won't?
I mean,
let
I
the
know
news?
that after the first 30 minutes, nobody gets listens to podcasts.
Actually, a lot of people jump right to the VR minute.
Well, we can talk in both places if you want. I'll
Whoa,
cover those
whoa,
bases.
whoa.
Save it for the VR minute.
Another thing that a great thing that came out of Google, not related to April Fools. A little while back, a Google engineer posted a blog post about testing USB cables, generic USB cables found on Amazon. And Jeremy, you told me this morning that there has actually been some consequence to that.
Yeah, apparently, so this Google engineer had been buying up every USB 3 cable on the site and tearing them apart, finding out how they weren't meeting spec because he was trying to use them and they were failing. He would do these verbose reports on it, and eventually caught Amazon's attention. And now Amazon has committed to to only stocking USB cables that meet spec. So that's good news. Well
Quality
done.
control.
Well done, Google engineer. That was well used of 20% time. Thank
How
you.
many times have you bought something on Amazon, like something common, if you need a 4.5 volt power adapter or something, and there's just too many options?
Well, sure.
So I had this problem with the DisplayPort cables the other day. I needed like a 5-foot DisplayPort cable to reach from my monitor to my computer because I put a boom arm in, which is, by the way, the boom arm for the monitor.
Oh, boom arm's
stuck
great.
on the wall.
Yeah.
Amazing.
It gives you so much more desktop space.
Well, yeah, I move it out. Like if I want to lean back in the chair and I'm tired at the end of the day, I rock the chair back and I pull it right up in front of me, and it's super good.
And
anyway,
you have new desk space now too.
I have
Desk
new-
space is the most important thing.
I have
Not
a place
having-
to put headsets,
Yes.
which I didn't have before. Anyway,
Or toys. So
the DisplayPort cables, there's a million of them. You can't find any, and the one that I got, the signal drops.
right, and what surfaces at the top? It's search results. I mean, it's a basic search problem. I assume the algorithm on Amazon, what surfaces at the top are either their preferred partners, the ratings of the actual product themselves, the validity of the sellers. Like you can trust a bunch of these things, but Amazon trusts user feedback, what people actually click and buy, to push results up to the top. Not unlike Google, ranking the search results. That isn't always going to give you the best product. I don't think it's a problem they've necessarily solved yet, and that doesn't allow them. I mean, it doesn't preclude them to do this either, but they don't currently do a lot of screening. So what you're talking about right now is Amazon actually doing some pre-screening for what they actually list, so people don't get trapped buying bad stuff.
To clarify the story, it was the USB Type C cable.
Right.
Yeah, and the engineer is Benson Luang. Thank you.
Awesome. Let's round up this Google news. This one ends on not that, a little bit of a downer, not that exciting, but there's a rumor that Google is killing its Smart Hub program.
No, well,
The
no,
Nest.
they didn't kill they actually killed the Resolve, which is a smart hub that they acquired in 2014. So it was a $300 device. It was similar to like the Smart Things or the Wink or something like that. And they announced that they're end-of-lifing it, which in the case of an Internet of Things connected device that relies on the cloud to work means that thing is now a brick.
How many people bought this?
It's
brick?
unclear.
And this is Revolve.
Revolve. Sorry, did I say Resolve? Yeah. That's carpet cleaner, I think. So yeah, the Revolve. It's no longer going to work when they turn it off. People are obviously pissed. Google is contemplating refunds of some sort. The good news is that you can buy a smart hub now if you have all that stuff that is a lot less expensive. I think Smart Things is $99, although it isn't without its own problems. Wink is in the same price range. There's several other options out there. Now, the question is, what does this mean for Nest? What does this mean for Dropcam? What does this mean for stuff like the Google On router? Like, these are all devices that Google's making, and if they're going to pull the plug on something and leave you hanging as a customer, like, it's non-trivial to move all of your like light bulbs and switches and stuff from one smart hub to another. It's basically an afternoon depending on how much stuff you have.
Well, it's different. There's a difference between this. I mean, this is most akin to Dropcam because it's a company that Google bought that had an existing customer base, an existing product that also then relies on ongoing cloud services.
Yeah.
It's a little different than OnHub, which they developed from the ground up in a partnership with a hardware manufacturer. While there's an app, but it's not. You're not paying for a regular service.
I don't know that you can use the hub without their cloud stuff. A lot of the features of the hub are dependent on their cloud.
But it sounds like they got rid of Revolve, and I mean, they haven't got rid of Dropcam, and that's built by Nest. It's a rebrand, but they got rid of Revolve because they wanted to develop their own thing from the ground up.
So anecdotally, I've seen a lot of people complaining about Dropcams being unreliable lately. Yes, I mean, the Revolve thing was probably a talent hire where they bought the company because they wanted the people to come in and build something from the ground up that was more googly. However, and it's possible that the number of people that are served by this Revolve thing is so low that it doesn't make sense for them to devote time and energy on something that's going to be dead in 6 months anyway, regardless.
If it's so low, then they should just provide them with new
That's
hardware.
the thing. They should just give them their money back. If it's Google, if you paid $300 for something and
Or
it
don't
stops
kill
working,
it until they have an alternative that they can then
that
move
just
people
send you
over.
for free. Yeah,
exactly.
Or give you an upgrade path. The other thing that came out after all of this is that somebody posted on Reddit an alleged Nest engineer.
Ooh, what's this?
As always, the usual caveats apply, right?
Okay.
May or may not actually be a Nest engineer.
Right.
But they said that the whole thing is things are bad in the Nest division. People are crying in bathrooms, like everybody's working like it's crunch time constantly for the last 2 years, and that there's a possibility that if Google pulls the plug on Nest, as they have, they've shown interest in selling Boston Dynamics and some of the other less profitable divisions. Nest is not a profitable division, and if Google pulls the plug on Nest, then those devices all become, valueless. The Nest doesn't work without a cloud connection either.
Well, hopefully they could just sell it off.
Hopefully they will sell it off.
I mean, that's a considerable client base.
Yes.
So, yeah, including us.
I don't think Norm has a Nest, do you?
Nope, I don't have a Nest. I don't think I need it without AC. Unless I had AC, it's not.
My
as
Nest was
compelling
trying to put the AC on yesterday. It went blue. Like, I never see it go blue, but the
You
screen
need
went
to
blue.
set it so it doesn't have AC.
Yeah, I know.
It's
I
set
guess
up wrong.
apparently so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can turn on the fan.
Yeah, it does that.
The fan helps.
Yeah.
Anyway,
It was really hot yesterday.
so last
Sorry.
week when we recorded this episode, it was last Thursday, and we recorded the episode of this podcast before a major event. The event happened at 8:30 p.m.
That's right, that night.
that night.
What was that?
The world changed. Tony Stark came on stage and told us about how we'd all
On time.
Wait,
on
what?
time, and told us how we'd all be able to buy our cars, the car of the future,
But that's a
for
lie.
a down payment for $1,000.
They've sold $11 billion of those cars of the future now.
Okay, so in the first 24 hours, before they even showed the car,
Elon Musk, not Tony Stark, but they're the same person.
Real life Tony Stark.
they sold 125,000 pre-orders.
Yeah, so while we were sitting here recording the podcast last week, we were checking online, checking Twitter to see where people, of course, we're talking about the Tesla 3, if people are waiting in line. Because the way pre-orders work, they had estimated about 90,000 pre-orders, they said, over the first year or so of the Model 3.
They said they figured there'd be 8 or 10 people in line at stores.
And they wanted to, they wanted to reward their loyal supporters. I think people who already bought a Model S or Model X get priority pre-orders for the Model 3, and also for people who want to visit a Tesla store, they could have pre-ordered, put down their down payment of $1,000 for the Model 3 before even seeing the car, before the announcement was made at 8:30 p.m. Pacific last Thursday.
That's right.
And so when we were checking Twitter, we found that hundreds of people were waiting at every Tesla store around the country.
Yeah.
Hundreds. And by 8:30 p.m., and I get why they let people wait in line, because while you're there signing up and putting your $1,000 deposit, they can also sign you up for test rides or Model S. They can do all sorts of getting, it's a more personal thing. It's a retail thing. play. By 8:30, like you said, Elon Musk came on stage, and it was a great piece of PR. He said 112,
I thought 25.
125,
but sure,
1,000 people had already pre-ordered the Model 3 at that point, which is crazy.
Absolutely
Crazy.
Because nobody had seen
No
the
one
car.
had seen it.
No one knew anything about it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's amazing. I thought
That's faith in a product line. I mean, this is something that if Apple, and we've speculated, what if Apple gets into the electric car game? And they've hinted here and there that cars are ripe for disruption.
Yeah.
Tesla, over the past, how many years has it been?
5 years.
5
6
years since the three
I'll look it
years
up.
since the S, and 6 or 7 years since the Roadster. Over these past couple of years, have built a reputation for quality and for embracing new technologies and building up the infrastructure that people trust them. They've also invested in the Gigafactory.
2008. So
Right.
it's been almost 10 years. It's a long time.
So that's something that's very difficult for even, I think, Apple to do in an unproven market for them.
Well, they've set themselves up for it because they have made extraordinary cars. 3 extraordinary
Right.
cars that
I-
everybody covets.
Right, exactly.
They just can't afford them.
Yes.
So it's not like, it's as if Apple spent its first 10 years making
Yeah.
things that nobody could afford and then finally came out with the Macintosh.
Kind of what they did. I mean, some would argue that's what the Macintosh was.
Right. I guess. Do you mean like compared to Lisa?
Like nobody could afford the Macintosh, so we were all using
right.
shitty PCs, and then all of a sudden Macs got cheap when computers got cheap.
Right. Yeah, I suppose you're right.
I mean, and it's the compelling thing about the iPhone, right? It's that it's more egalitarian, right? You can afford the world's best iPhone because it's the same as the world's second. The best iPhone is the new one, and people can afford to spend $600 and get that.
The thing is, like, that's $100 for every one of those $1,000. I mean, that's so they have like millions, hundreds of millions of dollars now. Just
Billions. of
Is it
dollars.
billions? Right
Oh
now?
no, sorry. It's
So
they got an incredible zero interest loan
Yes.
from 250,000 people.
yeah, as
They crowdfunded a car.
Kickstrack said, this is like the biggest Kickstarter campaign ever.
Yeah.
This is just to wait in line for this car, which would probably take them a couple years to deliver.
Have they talked about what the supply, like, have they sold through all of the 2018 cars now? 2017, 2018 cars now?
Well, so, okay, let's get more details, because we did see the car. It was shown at 8:30. At that point, Jeremy, I know you pre-ordered. I pre-ordered soon after. My dad pre-ordered. You can get refunds for these pre-orders. It is as we discussed last week, it's an interest-free loan to Tesla, but anytime you can get a refund for your pre-order, move it to a Model S if you want to do so. And if you have $1,000 sitting in your checking account, you're not going to get interest. You're not getting anything from that anyway. What you're doing with this $1,000 down payment is getting a place in line. So the car itself, it doesn't look just like a smaller version of the Model S, whereas the Model X looks like just a bigger version of the Model S with the hatchback with the SUV. The trunk in the back. We were afraid of two things. We were afraid that it would lose features, that Tesla would compromise to get it down to $35,000. They would get rid of the all-glass top, and they would get rid of the autopilot feature, right?
Well,
we speculated that as much.
I speculated that they would keep that.
It's interesting. Yeah, you were right. I mean, I think that they see that as core to their USP, right?
Right.
That is like self-driving, super safe, huge glass roof.
I also think there will be advancements in autopilit between now and then.
Oh, sure.
And so that's going to become
absolutely.
even more important. And maybe there's going to be tiers of autopilot.
And I think, thinking about it now in hindsight, which is 2020, of course, they could not afford to put autopilot in Tesla 3s, because Tesla 3s, Model 3s, are going to be their best-selling car by far. It's already proven in pre-orders, and they need that data in those cars to make autopilot better across all their lines.
I also suspect that the autopilot hardware isn't terribly expensive. I think it was expensive in R&D, but the main price of these cars is probably in the batteries and whether or not you get all-wheel drive or not.
Which they're betting on. Their Gigafactory is scaling to a point where they can make the 215-mile capacity battery at such a low cost that it's going to be worth it for them to sell these cars at $35,000 to $42,000.
That was news to me that the Gigafactory is fully armed and operational. When they first showed the quad shots of that, I thought those were renders, but that is real footage of that factory that's practically finished.
The largest indoor warehouse space.
And he said it's operational right now. That's right. The largest footprint of any building of any kind in the world.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and by volume, second only to the Boeing factory.
They have solar panels on top of that entire building.
I didn't see any in the quad, but they must be doing that. I mean, I would think so.
Yeah.
Is it off the grid? Is it self-sustained?
I mean, if you're talking about the largest footprint of any building, and Elon Musk has talked about, that great talk he did about if we just took this area of the desert and made solar panels, it would power the world.
Right.
Like, you got to be putting solar panels on that building.
Yeah.
Oh, the whole thing's the solar panels on the roof.
Yeah.
It's
the
part of
thing.
their. It's part of their.
That's the plan.
Like their goal is to make their energy needs for their facilities neutral.
Mm-hmm. Good.
So, like the Tesla factory has giant panels all over the roof in Fremont, and I think anything that they can't generate locally, they buy from green.
So this is a good question. Leads to talking about their production capabilities.
Yes.
They build their cars right now out of the NUMMI factory, which used to be a Toyota factory down in Fremont. And
Just across the bay here.
Yep. And they've said that they've produced about 100,000 cars so far in the past 3 years of building the Model S and also the Roadster and Model X. That's not a lot. That pace with over 250,000 pre-orders, that's pretty grim. That means if there's no delays and it comes at the end of 2017, which it's fair to say 2018,
Yep.
Start 2018, that means we wouldn't be getting our cars till 2020, which is in crazy amount of time. That's
Right.
4 years from now to put $1,000 pre-order.
That's why I didn't pre-order on that first day, and at this point, there's kind of no reason to.
So-
Now, the NUMMI factory that the Tesla's in has had a capacity in the past of 500,000 cars.
That's
a year.
what they said also.
Yeah.
And if they were building at full capacity.
I
and
thought that was a little deceptive, actually, because the way he phrased it, it sounded as if Tesla had, in the past, had that kind of throughput. But
Right.
he meant the factory before
Exactly.
they took it over.
There are three things going on there. He could have said they are currently producing 500,000. They could have said they're currently at a pace to reach 500,000, but he didn't say that either. All he said that is that in the past, with the type of cars that Toyota's building,
Right.
that it would be at that pace. I don't think that they're going to build at 500,000 cars a year because these cars.
Why not, though? Because
They aren't.
they're so much more automated.
I think that's
No,
a goal.
no.
That's a capacity goal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it'd be great if they reached 400,000 cars a year, and that means everyone would get their Model 3s in
2017.
In 2017, or 2018. Yeah, that'd be great.
I think eventually they will hit that. Just probably not in the next 2 years.
I mean, if they can reach that scale, it's just profits for them.
All that thing he said is that this room has the space to do the thing that I said. Like the question is, they've got to ramp up a ton of battery manufacturing capacity. They've got to get the amount of infrastructure required to make 500,000 cars a year is incomprehensible to normal people.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
I mean, it is an enormous job, and they've run so lean so far. They've only shipped 200,000 cars total.
Well, you were saying less than that.
Yeah,
100,000.
Yeah. So
And the battery factory is going to make more lithium batteries than all the other factories in the world combined.
yeah,
This is an Apple
multiplies-
scale level problem without the FedEx UPS logistic challenge of delivery. So the other question is, a lot of people wanted to jump on those early pre-orders because the $35,000 price point, the base price point for this car, doesn't include the federal and state tax credit, which in California, if you add those two right now, it's about $7,500.
Yeah. As long as you owe at least that much.
That only counts on the first
That's
few
exactly it.
100,000 cars or something, though, right?
Exactly. So the fine print on that is that federal tax credit only applies to new car manufacturers in their first 250,000 cars across all their lines.
I didn't
So-
know that.
So it includes the 100,000 cars that Tesla's already sold.
Well, how is BMW offering that tax
Because they
credit?
haven't sold 100,000 electric cars yet.
Oh, so it's
only-
only the
it's only
electric
the
ones.
electrics and the hybrids.
Yes.
Got it.
Yeah.
So I think that'll change. Like, you don't get that credit on a Prius now if you buy a Prius.
So it's not going to be an exact cutoff. And at the point where Tesla sells 250,000 cars, so at this pace, a good amount of Model 3 pre-order people, the first 50,000, maybe first 100,000, will get in on the tax credit.
Yeah.
But once they reach 250,000, it's not like the tax credit goes away. It'll still go through the end of that quarter of that year, and then the government may just tear it down, and you'll make it a little bit less of that tax credit.
I mean, my guess is that they're working with lobbyists now to make sure that this extends, because it makes sense. It's good for everybody. The more gas cars that we get off the road and the more electric cars we get on the road, it's better for everyone involved.
Yeah.
So, anyway.
We can afford to borrow more money from China to pay for all that, so that's fine.
Just charge more taxes to the gas company. Put another 50 cents on gas.
I mean, as exciting as the Model 3 is, there's also competition out there. And every car manufacturer, I think there's statistics that says, speaking of BMW, BMW sold in the model their 3 Series car, which is the price comparable car to the Model 3, about $30,000.
Yeah.
They sold only 100,000 Model 3s last year.
Well,
all of 2015.
All of 2015.
Most of those cars exist solely so that they continue selling cars in California and in places that require an electric car a certain average miles per gallon across their entire fleet. So, for example, the chairman of Chrysler, Daimler, said years ago that the only reason they made a Fiat 500e is because they had to in order to get the miles per gallon average down on their SUVs, so that they could continue selling cars in California.
But it was a business decision.
Yeah.
It wasn't a market decision. And hopefully the Model 3 and the sales will actually move numbers and see the needle move on the other direction for the cars that people aren't going to be buying from the other premium car makers, and to force them to change their perception of the market.
I mean, the people that should be scared are the Lexuses and the Mercedes and the BMWs and the Audis. This is eating into their businesses.
Well, what about the Bolt? I mean, they are basically the exact same specs, same price, same range, same acceleration, 0 to 60.
It's just so fuggo.
in 6 seconds, and but they're going to be out a year ahead of time.
It's fuggo.
Do you think? I wonder how this is going to affect their prices. You're right. It's ugly.
really, really ugly.
No
I
doubt.
think it's not just the appearance, and some people would say that the Teslas are too futuristic and they may be putting too much design in for ease of use. Like, the touchscreen for the vast majority of people, that touchscreen is not going to be as intuitive initially an interface as the knob and dials you see on a traditional car.
Well, and it's Android. Who wants that?
Have you explained that yet? Because that's important. There's no dashboard. There's nothing. There's no speedometer. There's no gauges. It's one big touchscreen that's horizontally oriented.
Which
Is
may
the speedometer in the middle?
In the center. It's on the touchscreen. It's on the upper left-hand
I
corner.
don't like that.
I'm a little concerned about that.
I didn't like when I drove a Mini Cooper years ago. I didn't like that because the gauges are all in the middle of that car.
They replaced that with the GPS now, with the new versions.
Oh, really?
It's now in the middle. But yeah, I'm a little concerned about the Model 3 just for this reason. Otherwise, it looks phenomenal.
Hey, I'm going to go ahead and tell you what they're going to do. I got it for you.
Hit me.
They're going to put a HUD in so that when you look through the glass, you see the speedometer and your important gauges.
That would be great.
All right up in your field of view, so you
That's
never have to look
expensive.
down. You think
I'm saying, like, if they haven't already shown that in the car, to add that in would be a huge
Well,
what if they're planning for it?
Phase 2.
They would have shown it.
Phase 2.
Maybe they aren't sure
Did you
they
read
can do
about
it.
that?
No, what's phase 2?
Elon Musk said, "We did not expect this level of interest in the Model 3 until Phase 2 of the unveiling."
Oh, so that means when Black Panther comes out and like Hawkman.
He said it's going to be closer to the launch.
Wow. I mean, what if he is literally building an Avengers? What if he's going to pull up
An Avengers of cars.
an Avengers of technology? It's like
when
him.
Spider-Man shows up, people like criticize the costume.
Bezos shows up, and then like Bill Gates comes in with the mosquito laser, and
I don't know.
it's like the super team.
I think if you own all 4 Tesla models, they actually combine to form
You would be
Voltron.
crazy.
Oh my God, that would be amazing. The Roadster has to be the right arm with the gun, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
It's just a Lotus. It'd be the black sheep of the family.
Oh, it's so good. So you guys pre-ordered?
I did. Yeah. I mean, I got
Norm?
$1,000 in Elon's pocket right now.
And it was more about the timing for me.
Enjoy your
my
loan,
car.
chumps.
My car is going to be 13 years old when
Are you gonna
the
make it
car
that
comes
long?
are. Yeah, I hope so. I better. So
Toyota,
this
it's good.
timing is right.
Yeah. I'm concerned about mine. Mine is 10 years old, and my engine's about it's not doing so well.
I mean, when you talk about the Bolt and the Tesla and why, even though the specs on page are very similar for these electric cars, people are more excited about buying a Tesla. It's the Apple problem, right? It's the appeal that the brand they've built over the past 5 years or past 8 years of having this car, the reliability, the commitment to design and also technology that they put out, that when people buy a Tesla, they're not just buying the car, they're also buying the brand. And all things being equal, people are going to gravitate toward the things that make themselves seem cooler or happier.
So we should all get the same car. It's like a cult. We all have the same phone. We all get the same car.
They did say that supercharging was included on all models, but that doesn't mean supercharging for life, right? That's
like
just
free supercharge using
That's
the
different.
supercharge across these what they say will be over 7,000 superchargers by 2018.
right.
So yeah, on most times when you buy an electric car, you get a card that works with one of the charging centers.
So how does that card get billed?
The card.
Oh no! So how does that work? So if you buy a Bolt,
Yeah.
or if you buy,
Well, I know about the BMW and the Leaf.
So you see the electric chargers.
Yeah, you get an RFID thing or an NFC thing that when you walk up, if for like the Leaf, they were giving you a year free charging at one particular vendor of those chargers. Now, here's the trick. Usually the high-speed charges are an add-on option. So you get 120 volt charging with the car. You get 240 volt charging with the car usually. But if you want the 480, like which is for the i3 or the Leaf, like a 15-minute charge that gets you to 80%.
They call that level 3, right?
Level 3, it's 480 volts. It's an enormous, huge,
Yeah.
like washing machine hose plug. Usually that's an add-on option that you have to pay $1,000 or $2,000 more for.
So what is the rate of filling up a electric car with if you don't have a complement?
So if you're doing over 120, to fill a car like the Tesla is probably like a 2-day thing.
No, I'm saying what is the cost?
Oh, it depends wildly. So on like the Leaf, if you lease a Leaf, then you basically get free charging at those stations for the rate of the Leaf. If you're getting power at your house and you're charging after 11 p.m. in California, it's like 1/10 of a cent per kilowatt hour, which is a 100 times discount or something on the normal 3 p.m. summer afternoon rate. And then everywhere in between. The thing that seems to be like a lot of places here, you can get 120 or 240 free municipally. Like you can roll up in Half Moon Bay and just plug your car in, and if there's an electric spot open. Same thing at say the Metreon, the parking lot by the Metreon. All the city of San Francisco garages have free. I think it's 240 volt charging.
That's awesome.
If there's spaces available. Now there's not. Spaces are tight these days because of all the Teslas.
Well, they'll expand them hopefully in the next couple of years.
I mean, by the time 2030 rolls around, they'll probably have a pretty good solution for that.
My fear is that even if they double the amount of superchargers, just infrastructure-wise, we need a lot more just electric chargers. Period.
Well, I talked to somebody the other day who like has a house in I own, which is in Gold Country, near where Adam used to go blow stuff up when they needed to blow something big up. And he's like, "Look, I can't get there because I would get there, I would have maybe 30 miles extra charge by the time I arrived to where I was going, and then I either have to put a fast charger in my house and never range further than 150 miles from that house, or hope that I find a charger someplace where I'm going and there's no chargers there's no chargers in the Eastern Sierras," is what he said. So anyway, that infrastructure is coming, and the supercharge. I mean, what is it? It's like 80% in 20 minutes or something like that. 30 minutes.
Yeah,
For a big Tesla battery.
Mm-hmm. And if they can have a couple of those along from those SF to LA type commutes, so not everyone is stuck at the same in and out and the same
Harris
total,
Ranch, man.
then that's going to be better because right now those are already at capacity basically with Teslas.
Really, the Harris Ranch one is full all the time?
You see a couple Teslas every time.
Yeah, but there's like 15 space. Anyway, yeah, it's like that stuff. There's a lot to work out there, and there's going to be growing pains, especially if they dump 250,000 cars on the road in 2018. You guys can still get your money back. Just keep putting
a lot of cars
putting
are
the
exactly the
dinosaurs
same. You got to
in.
pick the color that doesn't look like everyone else's.
You got to get the ugly one. That's the only choice. If
Bolt.
you get that silver, yeah,
The Bolt
There you go.
skin on your Tesla.
you got to put some racing stripes and shit on it. Like you lower it, put some ground effects.
Hats. Got to sell some hats.
Hats
some
would be
TF2
amazing.
hats for your Tesla.
Rocket League hats, man.
Right, decrease your coefficient, your resistance. Tesla's a brand that people like aspire to drive and trust, and another brand. I mean, just like with buying cars, even with the price is the same, I'm still going to choose this brand, Virgin America.
From one billionaire personality to another. Richard Branson.
Fucking finally got status on Virgin after 5 years of
What do you
flying
mean
Virgin.
Status?
I'm special now.
Well, how are you special?
I fly.
Uh-oh.
Norm and I flew enough last year, and Joey. Did you get status, Norm?
No, I drove too many times to LA.
Oh, mistakes were made. Yeah, I got silver. I'm elite. I'm elevate silver status, which means I get to board first.
Yeah.
I get free seats in the front of the plane.
Oh wow.
Like I don't have to pay for the extra leg room, early
Yep.
boarding bullshit.
Well, you got 6 months to live it up, buddy.
Oh, fuck those guys.
They've been acquired by who is it? Alaska Airlines.
So I'm going to tell you, I fly Alaska fairly regularly too.
Oh, how are they?
They're good. They're really nice. It is a place where the people who are working there are happy to be there. Like they are enthusiastic and friendly and helpful, as opposed to say United,
Okay.
where they seem to hate everyone.
That sounds compatible with Virgin.
The planes are all relatively new, in the same way that Virgins are. I don't think that they appointed them quite as nicely as the Virgin planes.
Who did?
But and I'll say that the safety video that plays at the beginning of the flight much better than
Just
Virgin's.
charming.
Oh,
No.
I'm a fan of Virgins.
What?
Oh, yeah.
You like the rapping robots?
Yeah.
You know what my favorite part of the robot rap is?
When it's
The
over.
robot
When it's
rap
over.
is over.
Yeah,
And then when Beyonce comes on,
it's not Beyonce.
I know it's not Beyonce.
I saw the little girl in the airport in LA one time.
Shut up.
The dancing girl.
You think
the
you
singing
did.
girl? I thought so.
You thought was it the Virgin Lounge?
It was in the Virgin
Oh,
Lounge.
for status members
Do you think
only.
she has-
meet this today only? Meet one of your safety dance.
You could get a picture taken.
Stars.
It was her and the yoga lady.
Character dining with Virgin America.
You're the character I always fall asleep at. That's when I know I'm getting a good plane ride. Is when I pass out.
My goal is to have the headphones locked in before the TV comes on.
I was saddened by this news because I always try to convince my family to fly Virgin.
You guys go to Chicago a lot, so it's hard.
Oh, we don't actually. No, we go to like Dulles a lot.
Oh, Dulles is great.
it's
That's a
perfect.
great route.
Love
5.5
that.
hours.
Yep, it's flight 69, dude. It is.
Oh, you do the other one.
Yeah,
I do
well,
the
both ways.
afternoon
It's
one.
both ways.
Okay.
And it's. I'm hoping that they don't destroy it, frankly, because I love Virgin America. It's always I just love it. Every time I walk on that plane, it's just so much better than other airlines.
The fact about the merger didn't give me a lot of hope. They used a lot of words like leverage the brand and exploit our relationship with.
Well,
with
they
the users.
they wanted to be in places where Virgin America had hubs,
Like San Francisco.
like San Francisco, New York.
Chicago. They have gates in Chicago, which is hard to get into.
Yeah, so it's about a wider reach.
They sent an email today to their clients, Virgin did, and they said that there will, if you're concerned about your points, about your status, Will Smith, you have at least another 6 months because it still has to go through
Right.
shareholder approval and
So the points are going away.
Well, no,
No, they
Alaska said
haven't
all
said
that
that.
stuff will transfer.
yeah.
They said that in their fact.
Oh, have they?
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
But yeah, I want to be on the last Virgin flight. I want to be on the last Purple Lights. The last Purple Lights
they
I'll
can't
ever
be getting
see.
rid of the purple lights.
They're going to get rid of the Purple Lights. It's going to be all blue leather.
Is it Virgin going to even exist?
No,
I mean, I
it'll
figured it would just be
probably-
Alaska.
No way.
Way.
They can't get rid of the
That's what I'm
brand.
talking about. Now,
Way.
see what? This is the problem.
No, it'll be just like
Nope.
Yeah,
It's going to be
that's the
American
concern.
Airlines. You know how? Hey, remember Continental? Remember Pan Am? Those are all gone. Remember Piedmont?
If Alaska's smart, they'll incorporate Virgin's brand.
That would be super smart, but that never happens.
You don't buy Tesla.
Exactly.
You don't. Ford doesn't buy Tesla to then turn all the Tesla into Fords.
Yeah.
It's to turn the Bolt into the Model 3.
Let's hope
I-
that pride doesn't give
that's-
the best of them.
We'll see how this goes. U.S. Air begins with where's U.S. Air again? They're gone too, right? Yeah. Everybody's
Airways?
Yeah. Anyway,
I'm just done.
Yeah.
just look. You're gonna have to get used to it. They don't have your hipster beer on the Alaska Airlines. Everything's salmon, like everything's salmon flavored. They're just like, hey, you want some? And if you go in the wrong bathroom, there's like an 8-foot king crab in there. So
Is there an Alaskan accent?
boy,
Is that true?
no, there's no. It's just people from Alaska are just like us.
Okay.
They're like Canadians, but slightly less nice,
Okay.
a little crustier.
All right, a few bits of product news, tech product news before we get into the VR minute. There's a new Roku streaming stick out. It's $50, same price as the last one. Has a quad core built in. Reviews have been very positive, and so if you're looking for a Roku, this might be the one to get.
Does this have the voice stuff from the Roku 3?
I believe it does.
It's pretty good, that voice stuff.
And the Roku stick has been very popular. I think it's a great device for your secondary or your bedroom TV, so you don't have to have clutter and cables everywhere.
It's what smart TVs should have been, right? It should be just a thing you jam into a port.
Well, smart TVs sold you with that built in, but then you couldn't upgrade it.
And then they were garbage,
And
yeah.
then they were also garbage because they didn't spend money on the chips to make them fast.
Yes.
Also, there's a new HP Spectre Windows laptop. Now, this is getting quite a bit of news because of its design. It's a 13.3-inch laptop, and they say it's as thick as a AAA battery, 10 millimeters thick.
I heard that it had 2 hours battery life.
Well, it has 10 hours battery life.
I
That's
heard
what
that
they
in
said.
reality it has 2 hours
I
battery
really
life.
hope it's not just 2 hours battery life.
Yes.
1080p screen, which I like for that 13.3-inch size, 8 gigs of RAM, and it does not run Core M. It runs full Core i5 or i7.
Wow.
It starts at $1,200, which I think is a good price for that stuff. The only thing that holds me back from liking this laptop and being interested is that no touchscreen option. That's how they got it thin. No touchscreen option. And I don't know what the image quality is going to be like. But for people looking for thin laptops at a not crazy price, it may be something to look at.
I like that new HP logo. It's got the 4 lines.
Yeah, it's not super new. It's like they've
Have
had
they
it
used it
for
before?
a while, but it's minimalistic.
Yeah, I like it.
Also, NVIDIA showed off its the first graphics card using the Pascal architecture. It's not a consumer card. It is the Tesla P100, which they're billing as a card for deep learning and AI systems. So it's a professional
compute
card.
stuff.
It's all compute stuff.
It's really expensive.
Yeah.
I think I saw it was $15,000.
1,000? What?
It is purely a
It's for
not even
research
for a
and stuff.
prosumer. It's
Yeah.
an like industry designer graphics card. It's the first card they have using a 16 nanometer process, so which is a huge jump from the 28 nanometer process they'd been using before.
16?
16
That's really good.
nanometer process. I don't want to go through all the speeds and feeds, but what this means for consumers is that with this announcement, Pascal's first unveiling, we can hopefully look forward to the consumer cards, which for people building VR systems, I would still say wait, don't build your system yet unless you have the headset.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're waiting on a VR headset till late summer, wait till then. Wait till you get that shipping notification before you build your PC.
Are you suspecting we might see a Pascal consumer card this year?
Absolutely.
Yeah?
Absolutely.
Great.
Norm, how much did you see the DGX1 deep learning thing?
No.
This is the machine that the Tesla that the Pascal comes in.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, sorry. The DGX1 features 8 Tesla GP100s, which is 170 teraflops of performance on 28,672 CUDA cores.
That's a lot of cores.
It's a lot of cores. How much does it cost?
$130,000. That's you
Yeah.
can get a Tesla, or you can get a Tesla.
You get a Model X. You
Yeah,
get,
you get a decked
3
out.
Model 3s.
Yeah.
A decked out Model X.
Maxed out.
Yeah. Is that our new bar for what expensive stuff costs? How many Model 3s is it? It's like how many Instagrams?
Sure.
Okay.
And then I think that's it for product news. There also was a report. You guys still use your 3D printers?
Yeah, I actually am going to print a stand for the Oculus camera that'll go on the back of my Visa mount.
That's smart,
You still have
man.
the,
Yeah.
the
Put that on
the,
Thingiverse.
the
I
printer
still
bot?
have the printer bot.
And you still have your printer bot?
I love my printer bot. Yeah, I just printed a part for a pinball machine that needs some help.
Well, there was a report that says from last year, we had actually a huge jump in 3D printer sales. There was a 70% growth in the market. So even though I think it's because there are a ton more 3D printers and the price point has gotten real low. It's not at a point where everyone's going to have it, but it's not going away.
I'm kind of surprised at that because it hasn't gotten a plug and play yet. It's not at the point now where you can just open it up and feed it a file and it'll print. It still is kind of a hobby.
I think it's always going to be a little fiddly.
I don't know about that. Not
don't think so?
always. I mean, it might take a while. But, I mean, it's got to improve. It just has to.
I mean, Microsoft tried in Windows 10 to put in some native 3D printing capabilities, but there is no universal standard to make it easy.
Yeah.
Well, and even the machines that are really, really good and really reliable, like the Ultimaker and stuff like that, are still fairly fiddly compared to even the worst of the world's 2D printers.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. I mean,
So.
yeah, it's a completely different league.
But on the other hand, I still think that a 3D printer for home, something like the PrinterBot Simple Metal, that's not too expensive is super compelling. Is super compelling for the UPS guy who just came in here looked really, really scared.
Like first-time buyers, schools, that kind of thing?
Well, yeah, and like if you have a kid, you have somebody who has a lot of free time
Yeah.
and wants to learn about 3D modeling, there's something really, really satisfying about turning something on the computer into something that's in the real world and giving a kid that feedback loop. It's the same thing with Arduino, right? We've talked about this.
Totally.
Where you can write code, you can make something on the computer that affects the real world, and that helps reinforce that learning a lot better.
I think 3D printers have a reputation for being used to print things you find online.
Yeah.
I was talking to my kid's school's principal, and he was saying, he didn't really understand yet how 3D printers could fit into a school curriculum. And he was saying everything he hears is that people download something from Thingiverse and print it out, and that's it.
And that's the
But-
immediate
That's how you start.
That's gratification. Instant
Yes.
gratification.
But-
Download Yoda, print its head.
But that gratification goes up, exponentially when you actually print something you made.
Yeah.
And
Right.
there are 3D modeling programs for kids, like God, what is the
Autodesk.
AutoCAD? No, there's
123D.
even Tinkercad.
Oh, Tinkercad's great.
Their
yeah.
version of like the thing for
That's
kids.
for kids?
Yeah.
Oh, I use that.
Well,
I mean-
it's great for simple things. And
That's the perfect application for the classroom when you have one or two printers, small amount of printers, but everyone has laptops or tablets that can then design things, and then you take turns going to the CNC machine, going to the Carvey, going to the 3D printer,
Yeah.
and printing it out.
I don't know. I think the other thing I think is that VR stuff is going to make things like 3D printing a lot more usable, because I think the tools to make things in 3D are really hard for most people when you're actually working in a 2D projection of a 3D object.
You're talking about an inaccessible technology on top of an inaccessible technology, though. That's not the way to mass market 3D printing.
I mean, I think we're talking about 10 years, not
Sure.
6 months.
Yes.
I think, but if you look at the impact of something like Oculus's Medium has on how easy it is to make a 3D model of something, then all of a sudden that opens up. Like if you can make something in Oculus by using your hands in 3D space and then send that to your printer and print it,
Yeah.
that's rad.
totally. Yeah.
I want to use my $2,500 VR machine to model something for my $2,500 3D printer to put on my $1,500 quadcopter
today.
today,
Yeah.
which I can do
Yeah.
today. It's a magical time.
I did a talk last week where I talked to a bunch of people at a women's club in San Francisco about technology and the pace of technology. And I explained basically how, computers, the advancement of chips led to smartphones, the advancement of smartphones led to all this other stuff that happened. And they were kind of, they were flumped. They had never put it all together. They didn't realize that there were these connections between all of the things that have happened over the last 15 or 20 years. And they were asking questions about things like, what do you use 3D printers for? Why does encryption matter? Why is this fight about Apple over encryption? Why is that important? What do you use 3D printers for?
Wow, you were really representing.
Yeah, I was waving the tech flag real hard there. I didn't expect to do that, but it ended up being a really interesting conversation about how these things are going to interact with each other in the real world, and all of the stuff happening, the AI, the virtual reality, the 3D printing, the rise of CNC manufacture at home is all happening together, and there's going to be amazing stuff that comes out of that we can't even imagine right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, 3D printers in a home, absolutely the future. And I think we're going to move for SLA as that gets more reliable.
Yeah.
Because the quality's going to be better, and you have to have software. You have to have a lot of things go along with that. Middleware, the user-facing software, the hardware itself. But I think there's also going to be a rise on services like Sculpio and Shapeways,
Yeah.
where 3D printing, where you can design things in the classroom, send it, and have it locally printed and sent to you.
Kinko's
And
is the model, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But the price has to come down. I mean, the cost of printing at Shapeways versus buying your printer, that actually, if you're going to be printing a lot, it's cheaper to get your own.
Well, Kinko's is a perfect example because printing stores like Kinko's, you had to have those before everyone had a printer at home. And then we went back around to where now it's even easier. We had a point where everyone got printers in the home, like paper printers. And now no one wants paper printers in the home. And everyone wants services like Kinko's again because it's way more convenient. And you pay a
I
little
don't
more.
want Kinko's. I want somebody to bring it to my house when it's printed, though.
Well, the point being, it's a service.
Yeah.
Right? Service based instead of doing it all yourself. And there's totally a market to have your photo printer at your house. But things like, the photo printing plate services like
Shutterfly and all that
exactly.
stuff, yeah.
Like that amount of convenience is where we need 3D printing to be.
By the way, Kinko's does free delivery because they're also FedEx.
Right. But it's not free delivery though.
It is if you if you print a poster. It is.
Oh, I just think I look at all the stuff that's coming. Look, I don't know that 3D printers like there's always an argument for having convenient for some people, like for you being able to carve a circuit board with a CNC router at your house, so you don't have to send it off and wait 2 weeks for it to come back, is an incredibly valuable thing.
True.
For me, I don't have a whole lot of need for a CNC mill at my house. Like it would be a neat, fun thing to have, and as the cost comes down, I'll definitely find an excuse to get one because I'll have a project that makes sense spending $300 on a tool that'll make that project a lot easier. I think that's always going to be the gate, right? The laser cutter, when the laser cutter gets down to $1,000 or $1,500, then all of a sudden people who are using a Cricut or a vinyl cutter or whatever at home are going to look at that and say, "Oh man, I know how to use this. I can do so much with this that supplement. It doesn't even replace my vinyl cutter. It's just a supplement for that that vinyl cutter, and lets you cut new materials and do new things with them. It's going to be really powerful."
Yeah, instead of getting the 3D printer and then finding ways to use it, learn the software, have enough services where you are using the services regularly enough where then it makes sense for you to have a 3D printer at home.
Or at school. I mean,
at school.
I think that's one of the reasons I think that they should be in school is so that the children just learn to use this because it's going to be a part of their world as they grow up. It's going to be commonplace, if not in the home, and maybe it will be, but it will just be a part of manufacturing.
Well, and you look at so. The NYC, there's a famous Boing Boing post about NYC Resistor, and NYC Resistor we visited when we were in New York. It's one of the first maker spaces. They wanted a laser cutter when laser cutters still cost $25,000 or $30,000, and they sat down and they tried to figure out how they could afford to buy a laser cutter for $30,000, and they eventually got to, oh right, if we just etch people's laptop lids for them and the back of their phones and iPods,
that's it.
Then we can charge $50 per laptop and $20 per iPod. And that means we only need to do X number of phones, and everybody that comes here will already get theirs done, and then we need to do this many more. And they paid for their laser. When we went there, we saw that laser, and that was the first time I ever heard of like somebody that wasn't at a big company having access to something as advanced as a laser cutter. It was in like 2002, 2003.
If you're looking to justify the cost of a laser cutter, there are blogs out there with ideas, and you can make that money back in a matter of a year.
You can you can open an Etsy shop and cut out R2D2 paper confetti.
That's
and make that money back in
It's
no
not
time.
fun work, but it's lucrative.
Beats not having a laser.
Yeah, exactly.
Speaking of 3D printers getting faster and services, Carbon 3D announced their first machine.
Is this the carbon fiber thing that I saw at CES last year?
No, we actually have that on its way.
Oh, really?
Here very soon.
Ooh.
That's the Mark Forged.
Oh, that's right.
We'll be reviewing that. But we're talking about the clip process. This is, you saw a time-lapse video. It's a resin-based printing. It's not exactly SLA, but they're calling it continuous liquid interface production. It's using a projection system, and we're actually visiting them soon to get more information about this. But they announced their M1 printer, which uses this process. If you search Carbon 3D printing, you'll see time lapses of their print process, which is so much faster. They say an SLA print, which would take 11 hours, takes 6 minutes on this printer.
Holy shit.
Yeah. Like their time lapses, while admittedly still time lapses, show the print coming out of the bed just rising out. Yeah. Because the SLA printer uses lasers that do stencil basically each layer, and they do layers almost one at a time instantaneously. You check it out. But the M1 printer,
I've seen this.
The M1 printer it's a commercial printer, so it's not for consumers. It's going to be available to select partners through a subscription and pay-for-use model. But they did announce, Sculpteo did announce that they are one of the partners, so you will be able to use the M1 through Sculpteo by sending and paying for print services.
Well, that's the thing. Like, as the printers get faster, then the costs are going to go down, and we'll find a whole series of models that work. It's not going to be one. There's a business in the UK. I don't know if they're still active, but for a while you could like timeshare your printer, and you could buy time on somebody else's printer that was local to you. They would print your thing, and then you'd go pick it up, and they'd get money as a result of that. And that kind of stuff, like there are going to be a bunch of interesting businesses that come out of this, even though 3D printing has been to this point kind of janky and not useful outside of some real specialized
It's got to
stuff.
become more consistent too automatically because there's a lot of
Look at this.
variability in the operator and how well they know the printer and how well it's set up.
Yeah, and yeah, that's exactly it.
All right, is it time?
Bring it.
Yeah, let's do it.
The VR Minute. Virtual reality this week.
All right.
I really like that theme.
I like that theme as well. I know it's not the favorite of Jeep from Valve, but
Yeah.
What did you get? Did you get shade about which theme you play?
no, I got a preference. It's not
Okay.
shade. It's a personal preference. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna play the other one because this is the Vive week and Jeep works at Valve.
All right,
so
fair,
this
fair,
is for
fair.
you, Jeep. Virtual reality this week. Awesome. So, a big week this week, as it was last week. Last week we saw the release of the Oculus Rift finally. We spent a bunch of time talking about it. All three of us had headsets talking about it. And this week, all three of us have Vives. Is that right?
Yes.
I have a pre still, but it counts.
I think it still counts. Not much difference between the pre and the final Vive. So Vive is shipping. People have received it. Jeremy, you got yours yesterday. We've had ours for over a week. And what do you guys want? How do you guys want to dive into this?
Can we before we do anything else tell people to loosen their fucking headsets? Everybody's wearing their headsets too tight
On the Rift,
on
absolutely.
everything, everywhere. I'm seeing so many strap marks. Like on the Rift, that thing should just barely rest up against your face if you have it on right.
Yes.
And the Vive, you don't need to cinch it down.
All right, look, you could do a video on that.
Yeah, like that's a good idea.
PSA.
Yeah,
Look,
exactly.
Look, bust out the old.
Because I
Yeah.
need the one on the Vive because I can't get that as comfortable as I want it.
I can.
Mine's-
Jeremy, I can help.
No,
you.
and I agree because on the are we jumping right into the comfort? Because let's not jump right into the comfort.
No, this is
Yeah,
you
that's
gotta-
not
we
a
gotta
great place
build
to
up
start.
that.
All right, so Vive is out this week. Valve released a great trailer showcasing Steam VR. It's basically a commercial for Steam VR
really
and the
good.
Vive. It uses a lot of mixed reality stuff that we'd seen previously in little bits with Fantastic Contraption and even Job Simulator. They do that for a bunch of games and then showroom scale, talk about Chaperone. I think it hits all the strong points. It's a great trailer to show people if they're curious about virtual reality. I don't think it necessarily gets to a point where it can give you the experience of putting on a headset. You still got to try the headset, but it was a great video.
It's very reminiscent of the old ladies playing Wii bowling.
And yes, and I think it sets the tone going forward for how to produce videos showing VR.
Yeah.
I'm definitely thinking about that.
I wonder if they're a little disingenuous in the same way that the HoloLens is, though, because they are showing, the images stretched to the edge of the screen in the same way that HoloLens did. Obviously, the field of view is a lot narrower on HoloLens. It's like a TV or a rectangle that's in front of you, as I understand it.
You can't put the binoculars barrel on those videos.
No, I love those videos. I think that they did a fantastic job. And having experienced VR, I get it. But I also wonder if people watch those and then they put on the VR headset, if they'll be surprised by the barrel view.
I don't think so.
No,
dude.
I think field of vision, FOV on these headsets matters so little.
I've put so many people through demos now, and the reaction is always,
Yeah.
Has anyone said
But
the
you
FOV is too small?
no one has ever mentioned the FOV.
But
They're
that
always
was-
just like, oh my God, there's a whale.
That was before there was like marketing like this available for them to see.
Yeah, but so there's a big difference between what the HoloLens does, Mr. Devil's Advocate, which is takes something that is actually the size of like two packs of playing cards a foot in front of your face and makes that looks like it fills your whole field of view, and giving you a thing that basically is 70% of your total field of view. I think it's okay.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody could complain about that.
Well,
I'm sure somebody will.
I don't know
'Cause
if
the
we
internet-
have perspective on that.
So people got their Vives pretty early. While
Yeah.
with the Oculus, it's well known now that they are in the midst of some shipping struggles. and they issued a statement. So some updates on that. They talked about on April 12th, they will have a definitive update on shipping, and their make good is that anyone who pre-ordered up through April 1st would get their shipping waived. For international buyers and pre-orders, that's great. And even people who already got their Oculus Rifts delivered, that shipping was also refunded, which is great. I mean, that's like $150 for people in Australia or so. And so, they've owned up to that. It still doesn't get your Rifts to you any faster, but so we're going to wait till that April 12th for that update. Vives, people got theirs it came out Tuesday. People got theirs Monday. Like FedEx wasn't even holding them. It was just going to Japan, going to San Diego. Jeremy, I know you were waiting for FedEx held yours.
They did, and even my driver was surprised. My driver, he was surprised they didn't let me come get it. That was the thing, because I did call and say, "May I please drive over to your house and come get it?"
I have a box cutter and I can cut some cords
but they said no.
and take it home myself. Save you guys a trip. Save you some gas money.
That's what I said.
So people have been setting them up. I think the big takeaway is that as much as we've had used VR, both in the Rift and all the development kits and also the Vive, there have been a lot of people reading about it, but there were also a lot of people, the vast majority of people out there had tried it.
And I love those posts.
A lot of people, the things that surfaced at the top before the headsets came out were so much of it was based on speculation and over-analysis and about little things that didn't matter. And now we're finally getting people who have been reading those posts and trying to and feeling bad about their purchasing decisions or feeling skeptical and maybe going through that trough of disappointment. And all of that's going away once they put on the headset. And everyone is blown away.
There have been a series of posts on our Oculus and our Vive that are like, holy shit, you guys didn't prepare me for this.
Yeah, I saw that.
I love those. Those are my favorites. Because
and that's going to be the tone going forward.
Look, when I was doing demos of my thing last year, I showed close to 200 people the demo, 150, 200 people, somewhere in there. And also showed them like Tilt Brush and the Blue and some other stuff as well. And the reaction, and these aren't people who play games. These aren't people who like video games or even self-identify as a casual like phone gamer playing Clash of Clans and stuff like that. These are people who are like investment bankers and like hardcore business people and corporate attorneys and all that kind of stuff. And invariably, the reaction when they take the headset off is, where do I go to buy this right now? And when you had to tell them no, you couldn't buy it right now, they were always sad because these are people that you don't usually have people tell them no very often. So it was like that to me, that I had the benefit of seeing that up front and knowing that this is a transformative technology that impacts everyone, not just people who play games, not just people who are into this stuff already.
So the other takeaway is that it really feels like that first year. I mean, I don't remember this, but when Nintendo came out, when the NES came out.
I was there, yeah.
And you guys were there, and everyone, holiday, waited in line. Once you tried it, everyone needed it. It was that build up from 2600, from Commodore 64. This is the first mass market ready with the game. It was with the killer app.
So it wasn't even like that though, because they released it real slow because the retail was really skittish because they all got burned on the 2600 collapse. So do you remember the first time you saw Super Mario Brothers?
No, I don't think I do. I remember playing it and thinking at the entire life of the NES that was the best game on there. I loved the Mario games more than any.
So maybe I
remember thinking that the first Mario game was exceptional.
So I saw that at Tyler Ferguson's birthday party in 1986 or 85. And I immediately told my parents I had to buy one of those. And they were like, well, it's $80. You need to start saving your money. So I saved money for ages until I could get one. And for me, it was the jump between early 80s arcade games, stuff like Galaga and single screen arcade games, Galaga, Pac-Man, Donkey Kong, all that kind of stuff. And then all of a sudden, when the guy was moving to the right and it was just a story that kept going, I didn't know what to do. I just couldn't imagine the possibility of having the technology go beyond one screen. And this feels a lot the same. I mean, I've told the story a bunch, and I apologize. I'll tell it again. But when we were in the touch demo, you can see in the video, I come out of that video when you were talking to Palmer, and I was in the Oculus Touch demo with Chris Journey, and I was like, you about 45 seconds into being in a virtual space with another person, you have this feeling that's kind of the opposite of the uncanny valley, right? Like the touch demo at the time was just a wireframe head and wireframe hands, and you saw the hands moving and they moved like a person's hands. You saw the head tilting and bobbing up and down the way heads move, and your brain immediately treated that as a human being, even though it's the barest representation of one.
As much as there was visual abstraction, it felt completely natural.
Yeah. You're talking to them, you're passing things to them. There's no hesitation, there's no kind of translation layer in your brain between, oh, this is a video game, I need to do these things. It's just natural behavior.
But my point is that, like the first generation of the 80s console launches, maybe the retailers weren't as prepared, and including the shipping themselves. Like, because there's instant gratification needed now, and we know, and people at Oculus and HTC know that what they have the future in their hands. Their inability to get the units out to people day one who want them.
I mean, they're probably more frustrated than the people that are sitting at home wanting their fucking headsets.
Totally.
Yeah.
And it's something that you would hope that come at the end of the year, PlayStation and Sony would be ready to address.
I think Ben Kuchera said it on Twitter, but the PlayStation's secret weapon is that when people want to buy a headset from them, they're going to actually ship them headsets.
Their secret weapons that they've done console launches many times.
Well, and they also built a much simpler design, right? If you look at the iFixit breakdown of the Rift, I mean, it is an incredibly complex manufacturing endeavor. Like the welded cloth on the outside, I'd be willing to bet. Like one of the things that we learned about doing computer stuff at Maximum PC for a long time is that designs where you couldn't test stuff along the way and you had to start soldering components onto boards before you could tell if any part of that system was bad are incredibly expensive. Because then if there's any failure along the way, and there's a lot of failures in microchip design and screen design and all that kind of stuff, by the time you realize there's a failure, it's too late. And you've lost both sides of the component rather than just the one. So I worry that Rift design is hard to manufacture. And I mean, it seems like they're working through kinks. I think they said that there was a supply problem.
They said
on
component shortage or component problem. Who knows what exactly it was? There's a lot of BS rumors about that.
I think people get so worked up about this that in a matter of years, people are going to forget about all of this launch business.
In 6 months. After you have your headset, you forget immediately.
And the only alternative is for them to stockpile the things in a warehouse somewhere and not ship them to anybody. I mean, yeah, it's frustrating that people aren't getting their shipments yet, but the alternative is nobody gets them and no news gets out and nobody starts experiencing these things. You can't find a friend that has one. Yeah. I mean, let's just relax a little bit. We'll get the things. If you don't want them, cancel your order. We'll get through this. It's going to be okay.
It's easy for us to say, though, in fairness.
I don't know.
Because we have them.
We have headsets.
I think it's a little easier for me to say it because I'm older.
That's true.
I just feel like I have a perspective on like what's important in life.
You've waited 3 years.
VR is important, Jeremy, in life. We did an HTC Vive review. The first thing we talked about and we wanted to show people was the setup process. And you can talk about differences between the Rift and the Vive in terms of the feature set and the capabilities, with track controllers and room scale. And those things do matter, but associated with those is also the setup process. And Vive is clearly a more involved setup process, something that we talk about as being more akin to core PC gaming, the people with the patience, who have the computer systems, who have the USB ports, and also the room and the actual environment to use it, as opposed to the Rift, which they clearly not only designed to look and be as comfortable as possible, but also be as easy to install and set up as possible. There is a noticeable difference there.
It's hard. You can't compare them because, in a sense, it is little apples or oranges because the Vive has extra hardware that is integral to what makes it interesting.
So you had a little bit of a hard time with firmware updates yesterday, Jeremy, right?
Yep, I had to try 3 USB ports to get my controllers updated. I'm gonna forget all about that. Not a problem. It was a pain in the butt, but in terms of the setup, even if it went smoothly, it's a different game because there are the lighthouses that go on. You got to find a spot that works for them, and you have a lot of cable. You have more cables that you have what do they call the box that all the cables plug into? The octopus.
The link
breakout
box.
Yeah, the breakout box. So I mean, there's
the Vive.
Yeah, on the Vive. Yeah. So there's it's a different ball of wax. And I would say if you're looking for simplicity, you might want to consider that maybe the Vive is not the simplest one.
And it's not just simplicity the first time around, because to be fair, once you get everything working on the Vive, it works most of the time. There also is a there are two things there in terms of maintenance. There's one, the Rift is easy to share, to package up. Like
Yeah.
I enjoy the box is great. Not just about the box being looking nice, it's functional, and I've moved the
Yep.
Rift from home to office back and forth almost every other day, and it is so easy to do it.
It's unplugging 3 cables and putting it in a box.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And for the Vive, while you can do it, I actually I wince at the thought of having to reset up and get everything right. So that's one thing.
As soon as they sell Lighthouse controllers, I'm buying an extra set of Lighthouses.
The base stations.
Yeah, so that I don't ever have to take them off the wall in my office again.
Right, because you want to have those as sturdy as possible. And that's also associated with the other thing, which is that reliability-wise, I've had more reliability issues with the Vive than with the Rift.
Do you have reflections?
No, it's like tracking. Sometimes I close all my lights, I close my windows, put the shades on, but there are just it's not just me. I've heard from other people.
Me too.
Controllers lose tracking. There's a little bit of wobbliness, even
Yeah.
though the base stations aren't moving. It works 95% of the time,
Right.
but the 5% of the time it doesn't work. It's frustrating.
I've had my controller fly out of my hand. You've seen that before. It just shoots out.
That happens when the radio disconnects.
Yeah.
It used to happen a lot more on the DK1s. The Pre's, I've only had it happen at maybe 2 or 3 times.
But more disturbingly, I've also had the tracking freeze up, where the image in the
I've
screen
never had that.
freezes, which is something I'm kind of used to from the DK1, DK2. But
On the Vive?
I have yeah.
If
on
they
the
Oh,
Vive.
you mean like when
to
you
me.
launch an application or something?
In between applications.
Yeah, that is a. I can get real nerdy if you want.
I'm just saying it's in there, and some people who are new to VR are going to experience that, and that's kind of alarming the first time you get that.
So
I wouldn't be surprised if some people fall over.
The challenge, part of the problem is that the Unity builds that support VR came in. First off, everything about these launches came in incredibly hot, and the fact that the launches were within like 8 days of each other didn't help things. But the Unity builds that support VR, which is like 5.4 point whatever, are not great. And by not great, I mean the night before the Vive launched, we were up until 3 o'clock in the morning because we discovered that everything was drawing twice for no reason that we could tell. Just, oh, that's a problem with this particular build of Unity. So then we had to change the way our lighting worked and a bunch of stuff to get performance on the Vive literally out of nowhere. Now, probably we should have been on a more stable build of Unity, but you kind of don't have a choice right now because the SDKs only support certain versions. So it's a mess. That stuff's going to get better. The freezing between unloads, they have to find a solution for because it's really disorienting when you're standing.
Yeah.
I usually just tell people to close their eyes when I'm loading people in and running demos.
Yeah, but you are also working with beta software. This is released software.
No, I know,
Yeah.
I know. It's like they need to figure minimum you need to blank the screen and I can probably talk about this. That stuff that the Oculus Cert process brought out. We kind of it seemed like Valve was just putting everything in toward the end there. So I don't know if they went through the full cert for small stuff like what I did. But like the Oculus people said, hey, look, you have 8 frames of freeze here. You need to fix that or black the screen. Here's how. And like it's the difference between a more closed platform and a more open platform.
And to that point, I feel like the whole Oculus experience from the box to the software to switching from games to Oculus Home is a more Apple-like experience.
It's very polished.
or console-like experience.
I'd say console-like is
fine.
fair.
But all that said, the Vive is the VR demo I want to give people.
Well,
That's the one that blows people's
and
minds.
Exactly.
I don't think exactly it's like. Why is it that? Is it the room scale or is it the track controllers?
It's the
Both.
track.
It's the track
It is.
controllers.
It's room scale in the sense that you can do one-to-one human movement.
Standing is more important than room scale, just to be clear.
Yes.
Like the
Yes.
lab proves that because the way the teleport works in the lab, if you can standing and using your hands is sitting and using your hands is good. Standing and using your hands is amazing.
There are a couple of presence multipliers there. You have track controllers, which is the huge, I think the biggest
Yeah.
presence multiplier.
Yeah.
There's standing itself, which we've known for a while, even back when they showed Crescent Bay.
Well, Oculus did that with
Crescent
like
Bay.
the standing on the ledge
That's
and
right.
yeah,
Yeah.
all that stuff. Yeah.
And then there's walking around, which I would say less walking around, but room scale, meaning like you can walk or crawl and have true like a volumetric movement.
And you
I
don't-
think once people start walking around, that whatever clicks in their brain, they start looking around more, which is part of what accentuates
that's true.
the immersion.
Yes.
Yeah, and you don't need a ton of walking around. Like I'm set up for the minimum 1.5 by 2.5 meter space right now, just so we can test minimum min spec room scale.
Dude, you can't. I can't. Finish your thought, and then I'll.
Well, I was going to say having room scale at all, being able to take 2 steps in each direction is enough for a lot of stuff. Obviously, there are limitations. There are games I can't play. There's I can't remember what it's called, but the strategy game starts with a U. Unseen Diplomacy doesn't work in a room my size.
Yeah. And that's a one room only. That doesn't scale. That's a one room only title.
Yeah.
I can't wait to try that though.
I'm super excited about trying that.
I can't set up room scale in my office. Now I thought I had a 1.5. What is it? 1.5
by 2.5 meters.
2.5 meters
Or 2 meters. Yeah, one or the other.
In any case, I'm off by about a foot, and it's so small.
Are you hitting the wall?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's not. So on 3 sides, it's a wall. On one side, I could wave it over some furniture.
Just wave it over the furniture. You'll be fine.
I know I could do that, but I want to give other people the experience, and I don't want them to hit furniture when they're walking around the room.
Well, get rid of the furniture. Life finds a way.
I can't. It's not that simple. So that was a little bit frustrating to me because I felt like I really felt like I had enough space for room scale, but I couldn't even set it up. So if you can't set up room scale, you don't get any chaperone. It doesn't use the chaperone for the
you just get the circle
for the
on the
boundaries
floor?
that you set up.
Yeah.
It doesn't. But you can still play room scale games, which is fine. That's good. That's the way it should be. But you don't get chaperone at all.
Oh, that's
You
unfortunate.
just get a circle on the floor. So that was a point of frustration for me. So much so that I committed to building a Vive box. Like I'm making a second PC just for Vive that I'm going to put in the TV room.
In like the big room in the basement.
Exactly. And so
that's the right thing to do.
And
the more space, the better. Like
every time I play a game with chaperone, I just want a bigger space anyway. So I know I would want that eventually.
We recorded the Foo show in a space that was 20 feet by 15 feet. It's the biggest space I've ever done VR in.
Yeah, that sounds humongous.
We were you ran out of cable before you ran out of room, which was magic.
Was your tracking okay?
Tracking was fine.
Great.
It wasn't a brightly lit space.
Were your base stations more than, what are they saying, 5 meters apart?
It complained, but it still worked. And I think I used the tracking cable.
Okay, the sync cable.
The sync cable.
All right, good to know.
I tried the sync cable and I ended up not needing it. But I was going to say the thing that frustrates me with the chaperone thing is it makes decisions for you and it doesn't let you edit that space. So like you should be able to, there's 2 spaces that are important. There's the space that's available and then there's the play area. The play area is what you see in game. Like there's a little boundary on the floor, usually that's built into the art of the game.
Yep.
And that lets you know, hey, this is where you can walk.
And that's tied to the SDK because the play area scale is based on your
Yes.
initial room setup.
And there are different size play areas that you can trigger. You can shrink it up and down using the edit button. The thing that makes me crazy is often my room's marginal. So I'll draw the line to get, and there will be space for me to rotate the play area, but you can't edit the placement of the play area in your chaperone space unless it thinks that you've succeeded in making enough space.
Right.
So like if it just doesn't place that rectangle well, it won't let you adjust the size of the space or the rotation of it, which is just silly.
And you would think that teleportation works, like in like the lab, teleportation works to solve a lot of those problems. And like we showed in our demo, you can, holding the teleportation button down lets you recenter yourself and then you teleport. Like I wish there was a universal teleportation mechanism in the SDK that would let you recenter for any environment, any virtual environment.
So we tested a ton of teleportation mechanisms, including like shifting orientation to aim toward the thing we thought would be most interesting where you end up and stuff like that. It's really disorienting. Like you have to be really careful with that stuff. In fact, actually in the Oculus build, we have 2 different TP. We have one in the tower that orients you toward the center of the tower when you warp in, and then the one in the studio is there's like frames of animation in between that kind of lerps you over there, and it's like there's nobody knows the right answer on teleportation yet. The lab is really good. The budget cuts one is awesome, but kind of unwieldy. I don't know I still don't think we have the right solution.
Budget cuts is interesting because they actually found a way to teleport you in the game universe that makes more sense than just magically reappearing somewhere.
It's a mechanic. It's part of the story, the narrative of the game. The
Yeah.
mechanic is tied to that.
But also they let you the challenge with teleportation is your physical location in your play area is always going to be relatively the same, even though you're going to teleport and the box that you teleport into may not align well with that. Budget cuts solves that by letting you rotate your view around, which is
exactly
super smart.
So the lab doesn't let you reorient the rectangle on the ground. Gallery does, but Gallery also differs from the lab in that you're moving your teleportation rectangle with your head by default as opposed to with the touchpad, even though you can switch that later. So everyone's trying different things. Another thing that Budget Cuts does is your teleportation ball that you throw is an actual ball. You actually see it moving, and there's physics involved with that, which also then gives your brain a better awareness of where you're going to land and end up, because you're shooting something. And the lab also adopts that by showing an arch as opposed to just a beam or a circle on the ground. So I think that's the closest we're going to get so far, and it's going to be a combination of the best practices for all of those to get us to a mechanic. But the other thing I want to talk about is in games like the Gallery and Vanishing Realms and Unseen Diplomacy, even the way the levels are designed, even with teleportation mechanics built in for those first two, I'm still hitting the edge of my chaperone wall because the game wants you to walk around after you've teleported.
Exactly.
So if I've teleported to a table, like if I teleported to a small table can be small. Like in the Gallery, there's an area in the early beginning where you walk up to a table and there are objects, and you walk around, pick up things or a campfire. I can teleport around there, but you're going to hit the walls because it's almost like they need to design the areas that you're going to teleport to be small enough that you're not either encouraged to walk around or you don't need to get the full experience.
Job simulator rooms.
It's about Job Simulator works because the rooms are the same size as your chaperone area, right? And then they dynamically change that, right?
And I think Budget Cut works because the game is a stealth game. So like those closets are relatively small, but you're only interacting with one face at a time, one plane. You're interacting with a grate on the wall, a window that you're peeking under, a hallway corner that you're peeking around. If I teleport to the edge of a hallway in Budget Cuts, I'm not inclined to walk around because it's a stealth game.
Yeah.
I want to stay stable. It's more about small body movements, leaning, ducking, peeking, as opposed to getting to an object, a table, and then having to walk around that space.
I think Budget Cuts lets you do more within the narrow confines of your space because it's a stealth game.
Right.
Like the ducking is the action that you're doing.
Yes.
And it involves body movement. That doesn't necessarily mean walking. Whereas, it still hits. It does still suffer from the same problem as Vanishing Realms because you do hit that wall. And when you hit chaperone, there's a puzzle in your mind because you want to go forward in the VR space and you have to go backwards physically. So you have to work that out.
It mentally takes you out of the experience because you have to do an additional layer of problem solving.
This is the place where I think having the smaller room actually helps because you instead of being able to walk around freely, you can take a step or two, right? So you get in the habit of taking a step out and then stepping back to the center, but primarily using the teleport for locomotion, which here's the thing. I think we're literally in like the Atari 2600 phase of figuring out how this stuff works and how the real worlds overlap with the virtual world. And actually, the Mario 64 is a better example. Like figuring out the 3D platformer camera is something that took 2 generations just in time for 3D platformers to fade out. We're at Mario 64 and we're using those yellow buttons to rotate like 35 degrees around the center. Somebody's going to figure this out. There's a way to do it. The Budget Cuts thing is close because it lets you adjust your orientation so that when you teleport, your physical room aligns with the corners of the room around you, and then you aim the way that you want to aim based on how you move that controller around after you place the teleportation ball. Mm-hmm. But it's going to be a little while before we figure that out. Like that's not a perfect solution because it's real slow.
There's also, I think, in setting up your room, there's the portrait landscape and analog where, for example, think of arcade games back with old monitors, CRT monitors, which were rectangles also. The genre of game define the type of orientation that was best suited for it. Shoot 'em ups like Galaga were best played in portrait orientation as opposed to landscape orientation, because that's where the content was coming from, and you wanted more freedom of movement in the confines of your flat rectangle to move up and down as opposed to left and right. You have an analog to that in room scale, in that most people are setting up rectangular environments. In a lot of games, it makes more sense. You physically want to move more forward and backward than you left and right. Well, so when in Vive, when you're setting up and you tell the game, or you tell Steam where your monitor is, what direction is forward, it's actually better to set it more longitudinally, more space, so you have more room to walk forward and backward than side to side.
Yeah.
Is that right? That's an interesting tip.
Well, but it defaults to the fat and wide, which is, I think, I'm not sure about.
Like, I think defaulting to fat and wide, I've hit the boundary more frequently. And it's a game design thing. It matters for genre of game. If you're playing a game where dodging left and right is more valuable, and you're moving left and right, I think for Space Pirate Trainer, dodging left and right, you would definitely want more room left to right. But for a game, for like the gallery, I want to move more forward and backward because I'm engaging with objects in front of me more with objects to the side of me. So I want there to be able to reorient which direction is front within the game. I think it totally, I mean, I hope that analogy works with, like, you know, the old arcade shooters, because we're talking about rectangles.
Yeah, I like Valve's method of showing you where you are in your play space in the teleport landing zone, so that when you hold down the button on the Vive controller, you see a square that is your play area, and then inside of that you see yourself, and then you can actually hold down the teleport button and walk around and watch yourself move in your play area.
That's super important.
Before you teleport.
Like having both of those pieces of information are important. You need to know how your play area overlaps with the virtual world.
Yeah.
And you also need to know where you are in the play area. Budget Cuts gets around that by like throwing up an error. If you bounce the ball underneath something that you'll clip through, it just says, hey, there's not enough room here. Try again. Vanishing Realms kind of doesn't. I'm not exactly sure how Vanishing Realms handles it. They're a little faster and looser, and I think they primarily expect you to just blink through the world.
Right.
And there's places you can't blink.
Yeah, like the inside water and stuff like that. I love that they solved the why people don't just clip through the geometry problem by, if you try to cheat and look through a wall to see what's on the other side, they just kind of pop you back to the last known good spot, which is super smart.
Oh, they pop you back?
Yeah,
They
I try to
don't
do
fade
it by like grabbing the goblet in the water by teleporting myself to the end of one room and
then
trying to walk through the water to grab the goblet, and it wouldn't let me do it.
Yeah, like there's places where you hear monsters through the walls, and I tried to poke my head through the wall to see, and it just noped me right back to
funny.
Yeah, it was really good.
Well, I put it on my son, because he's as much a VR nut as I allow him to be. He would like to do this stuff all the time, but I'm concerned about developmental stuff. I don't know what his IPD is or if it's compatible, so we do it in limited quantities. But his experience of using the Oculus Rift was cool. Do you have anything else you can show me? But his experience of putting on the Vive was just, came out smiling ear to ear. He just loves, and he was playing Job Sim where he can't even reach the countertop. like he was trying to.
Did he wipe out?
He was
it was somebody else's kid that wiped out.
No, he wiped out in the roller coaster.
Okay.
But he was trying to, like, Job Sim is 1-to-1 scale for the player, so it's interesting that, I mean, he's actually playing as a 9-year-old. You know, where if he tries to get the bacon, he has to jump up in order to reach it out of the fridge. And he just loves that the motion controllers. They clearly add an entire new dimension to immersion.
I love Job Sim, just for the record.
Absolutely.
It's very, very funny and really, really fun.
Yep. So what other titles have you guys played that you've enjoyed on the
Oh
Vive?
God, my favorites are things I go back to. Vanishing Realm, even though I'm close to the end, and Space Pirate Trainer.
The combat in Vanishing Realm, like having the sword and having to do it's just a really simple timing game of blocking their sword strikes, hitting them with a weak spot with a hammer or a sword or something. Super, super compelling.
What's interesting about that, I might have mentioned this to you, is that when I interviewed the developer, Kelly Bailey, he said that everybody has their own fighting style, which is different from something like Prince of Persia, where you learn the game mechanic.
Yeah.
You block until you get hit, and then you hit. You strike back. Everybody strikes differently. Everybody has a different stance. Everybody plays that game differently, which is awesome.
Hit point accuracy for melee weapons, which was the promise of games like Die by the Sword, long ago. Hit scan accuracy for melee. So you can, even though the monsters do have animations, and it's a problem I had with the Golem demo I played with Sony, where I wasn't feeling satisfied at all. Here, even though the monsters have your animations where they're going to be stronger when they're in their or defense pose and weaker, you can poke them at different places. And because there's teleportation, some people want to actually move around the monster and stab in the back. I teleport to dodge bullets or dodge arrows and then teleport around the monster and then slash them. It's almost like a superpower. It's like I'm blinking and then slashing.
Yeah,
I have a hard time teleporting around the monsters. Like I don't get the teleport bubble up a lot of times when I'm trying to sneak around the edges of them.
I jump back and teleport. Yeah, it's no problem.
I mean, are you shielding left hand and hammering right? I tried dual wielding last night. It's awesome.
With 2 swords?
2 swords. So you block with one sword, and I hammer with the right hand.
You can block with the sword?
Oh, yeah.
Well, yeah, there's animation. And the raw
That's
data
great.
people explain this. When you play a game, because raw data has a katana, and these games, while there is haptic feedback on the Vive controllers, lightsabers don't work because you can go through. Like there's no actual resistance to blocking the wall. But your brain actually does a lot of that for you, and your brain is inclined to play along. So when you're holding your sword up or your lightsaber, whatever game it is, your katana, to block an enemy, or when you're stabbing, when you're swiping and the enemy puts up their sword, because of our expectation, your hand actually stops and you get the animation and you play along, and actually convinces you that there is some resistance.
Well, it's a thing. Neil Stevenson predicted this in Snow Crash 20 years ago, right? Hero protagonist says when he first goes out and sword fights people for death in the real world the first time, look, I have to pull back on my strike so I don't get my sword stuck in somebody's head.
Right, and it's the same with the virtual objects, virtual tables, and virtual walls. Yeah. We naturally orient ourselves and maneuver our bodies to not clip, even though we can. We do the same thing with the things we hold in VR, is that we don't clip naturally because we're expecting the resistance, and so the muscles stop, and then they can actually, with the controllers, because there's tracking, they know if you stop, and then they can play the right animation to show. And
give you the little, it just takes a little bump too.
Oh, it's so subtle. It couldn't be more subtle, but it's effective.
So, Vanishing Realms, love that. Love Space Pirate Trainer.
Yeah,
like it is. That's like perfect arcade games. Like
I'm a fan of Space Pirate Trainer.
Have you discovered that you can combine the beams?
Yeah. I don't like that weapon.
Oh,
though.
if you use both beams,
you can cross the beams.
No,
and it creates one beam
and
in the middle.
it just wrecks house.
Yeah. I like selfie tennis.
I don't, and I want to so badly. That this was a cool concept. I didn't understand what they meant by selfie tennis.
Your room's too small.
Possibly, but just the physics weren't working for me.
But it wasn't perfect like this.
Yeah, the idea of selfie tennis is you're playing tennis against yourself. I thought it was going to be like a ball server serves the ball to you and you hit it back, but you actually hit the ball back and then you blink to the other side of the court and receive your hit.
And it's more satisfying not to win, but it's more satisfying to keep the volleys going.
How can you win? You also lose.
Exactly.
But I couldn't get the physics right. I feel like that there's just something missing about that, and I hope they can solve that because I want to play tennis, and that would be fun. And when it works, it's a ton of fun. But the something about the velocity of the racket hitting the ball is wrong.
I found that to be it's hard to hit the balls.
Yeah,
it's hard to even do like an underhand serve with them, much less an overhand serve with them, because the ball is a little sticky or something. It's hard to say.
Right.
There are 2 new blue experiences. The blue, so the whale one was great. We've seen that, but there are also 2 new ones that these are the best things to put people who aren't gamers in VR to make them feel like in a different space. Everyone loves the whale, but when you see those jellyfish,
dude, I think that might have been my favorite experience.
Hold on, there's new stuff in the blue?
Yeah, there's 2 new
ones.
Blue ones. The jellyfish sea turtle one.
Oh, I gotta go look.
Mind blowing.
It's the animation in that is amazing. Yeah. I don't know how they did that.
And there's interaction.
It looks physics based. I mean, it looks real.
I think Weaver is making some of the most gorgeous stuff that I've seen so far. Like it's just really impressive.
I got to say the deep sea one, I felt was amazing.
Like you felt
because
claustrophobic.
Yes,
and
it takes advantage of everything. Because first of all, you feel like you're wearing a diving mask. Yeah. But besides that, the dark screen, it's like the underwater like emerges from the darkness of your screen in a way that just looks real. And there's all this particulate matter floating or all around you, and you have these flashlights that you can shine through it. and then you get like what is it, the anglerfish, the thing with the
light?
glowy light,
Yeah.
and all this other illuminated stuff, and it's just gorgeous. I mean,
And it worked even with the black levels on the headset?
what do you mean?
Well, I mean, the black, like,
Oh,
It doesn't have perfect-
because it wasn't perfect black. It
Yeah.
would have been even better if it was
Okay.
perfect black. But I felt like it really
You
lent
didn't
itself.
care.
It's like
Okay.
the illuminated things in the game came out of the black so gracefully that it just really worked for me, and I was blown away.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of other experiences they've played. There's been so many. Gosh, what's the one where it's also more of an experience, but you're in the meteorite and you can break things open. It's a part 1.
The cartoon?
No.
not the Rose and I.
No. Oh God, I'm forgetting these. I don't pull up my.
I'll look.
my
I have Steam
list.
open. I haven't seen that, I don't think, though. I love Audio Shield. Audio Shield is amazing.
Yeah, I only played one song in it. What do you think is amazing about that?
It makes me feel like I'm dancing.
So the game it's like Guitar Hero, but with only 2 colors, and they fly towards you. Actually, 3 colors.
Yeah.
They fly towards you, and
Balls.
you have to hit them with the right shields.
You have to punch them. You
And then-
don't just block. You punch.
Oh, I just.
You're supposed
block
to
'em.
punch.
Are you supposed to punch?
Supposed to
Do you
punch.
get more points?
Get
if you
more
punch?
points for
Oh,
punching.
I'll punch next time. And then if you get like a purple one, you have to cross your shields
Uh-huh.
or hold your triggers down. And it's cool. It's super cool, and they have some good music up there.
And you can put your own music in. It's from the same guy who made Audio Surf, I believe.
How does it work with your own music?
So it does beat matching and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's all
It's all algorithmic. Yeah.
Is all the stuff in the game that comes with it algorithmic?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, no kidding.
Everything is
Yeah.
everything. It's just like audio surf.
Huh.
It's all procedurally generated.
So like some
animations.
stuff,
That's
so
impressive.
Like Audio Surf, some music is going to be better than others.
Yeah.
But stuff with like good bass lines and good melodies and stuff should be really rad. I think it's delightful. I think it's really good. It's rough. It's a little crashy for me even.
It's super accessible, and you got tons of particle effects all around you, so it's a good demo.
Gina watched me.
Irrational. Sorry.
Gina watched me play that and was like, I would like to play that.
She wanted to
It's
try.
the first thing that she's been like, I'd like to play that.
Really?
Please. Yeah.
Cool.
Irrational Exuberance is the demo I'm talking
I haven't
about.
tried
the
that.
experience. That one's really fun.
What do you guys think about the pricing on this stuff?
Some of it, like selfie tennis, I wish there was a way to demo some of these things, but
Well, I mean, the nice thing about the Vive store, the Steam store versus the Oculus store is that there's a refund policy. So if you get something and it makes you sick, then you can presumably return it within the limits of the store.
that's the Oculus.
No,
No.
Oculus doesn't do returns.
Unless you complain on
Unless
Reddit
you complain
about
on
it.
Reddit, yeah.
So that's
this
a good
looks
place
really
to talk
interesting.
about the differences in the platforms.
Hold on, is Irrational Exuberance out? It says available late 2016 for me.
It's the prologue. That's out.
Oh.
Yeah. Also, so the difference between platforms, and there have been also some talk about things that people now know, some incompatibilities in the platform. So, if you own a Rift, you can play some Steam VR games as long as they're loaded in Steam that support the SDK 1.3.
You have to build the game specifically to detect that. It's a kind of a hassle.
Right. And some developers have, and there's a list of games on Steam VR's website that show that. If you own the Vive, however, you can't play Oculus home games. Oculus is not putting their store to make it compatible with the Vive.
Now the question is the Vive going to be compatible with the Oculus store at some point? So will you be able to put on your Vive and launch the Oculus Home experience?
That's what they're saying right now. No.
They've said?
I mean, they have no plans to put Oculus Home for Vive users. The other incompatibility issue is multiplayer. And the first game that brought up this tension was Project Cars that uses Steamworks on its on the Vive version and on its flat screen version, but on the Oculus version it uses the Oculus SDK, the player matching and multiplayer. Those versions are incompatible. It is just because of the SDKs that developers chose to use. A game like Elite Dangerous and Radio G can do cross-platform because they built their own multiplayer infrastructure, their own network. Steam and Steamworks being a dominant PC platform outside of VR doesn't help with this. And it's just like there's just no way around it. Like I don't think they're going to work together to build the Steam VR / Oculus multiplayer hybrid SDK for people to do cross-platform. In that sense, it is choosing it's like choosing a console.
Right. It's unfortunate though because
That stuff can always change, Jim. It would be nice if you could buy one headset that's really expensive and play all of the VR games that are available for it.
Well, you can play Project Cars on either one. You just can't match up with your friend who has the other headset.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the problem. And I mean, those services, setting up those multiplayer services, I mean, that's a job. That's at least 1 or 2 jobs on your staff. And if you can outsource it, if you can use Steamworks to make that happen, I don't blame them for doing it.
Absolutely.
That makes a lot of sense.
Why would you not support the platform that has the massive installed base?
Right. No, and when they launched, that was it. And then, so it made a lot of sense. But I wonder now if, all games are going to have to start considering implementing their own solution.
There are also concerns over the privacy policy on the Oculus Rift. What you sign the end user license agreement when you launch it. In the fine print, people have dug this up. I think Gizmodo and Kotaku had a post about it. There are concerns about what Oculus has the rights over.
Look, it's the same thing that every app store ever says. They have the rights to distribute and view. This is
beyond that, because this now involves your own emotions. This involves logging your human
Well, there's 2
emotions.
things we're talking about. One is for the content side. So what things that you create in the applications. Like if there was a version of Tilt Brush or Medium, let's say for Oculus, whenever it comes out, the things you create in there, Oculus can use those without a license in their advertising, in their promotional materials, without your consent. That's the right you grant to them. They can't.
Assuming
you still own it, but assuming you created it and you signed and you launched it. The other thing,
so they probably overstepped on that.
Yeah.
Just to be clear.
I mean, but that is also
It's also boilerplate legal stuff.
Boilerplate legal for things like Twitter and
SoundCloud. SoundCloud has
Exactly.
the right to rebroadcast anything that you upload to SoundCloud unless you find a specific requirement.
right, as long as you prove that you own it, like things like photo uploading services, a lot of
YouTube.
those. Right. The other thing is what Facebook says they have the right to, what information they're going to be gathering, and they've come out and said that they are not doing any tracking of your body movements as yet, but in the future, if they do, they may use that for advertising purposes to deliver you ads, which is, I think, not unexpected. It's not surprising
Hey
at all.
guys, guess what Facebook sells? It's you.
I don't know. It might not. It's not. It's new territory.
Look,
Tracking people's body movements and having the ability to legally, store those.
Well, they track your mouse movements right now on your web browser.
How much time did you spend reading articles about VR last week? Facebook knows.
How many seconds did you hover over your ex-girlfriend's profile on Facebook?
Yeah.
Facebook knows.
No, not even that. Any page with a Facebook like button, they know how you behaved on that page.
Oh, yeah.
The amount of time you spent, how far down you scrolled, whether you went into the comments, the whole thing, they know it all. So,
Yeah. And so this
mean,
is just a next step for that, but I don't think it's scary until it's with eye movements and eye tracking.
I think it's been scary for a long time and just nobody cares. That's the thing, I think. If you're worried about it, buy a Vive, don't buy an Oculus. It's really easy.
Yeah. We will be doing more in-depth comparisons with the Vive and Oculus. There's a lot of A/B stuff to test. It goes way beyond the scope of this podcast. But in terms of content, another piece of content we've been using on both the Rift and the Vive is, the Foo Show.
Do you have a theme song?
Da, 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 da. No, wait, no, that one's taken. So the reason it's in preview is we haven't figured out a lot of the packaging stuff like theme shows and title cards and all that stuff that requires more than 3 or 4 people.
So, Will, you announced your VR product
On my favorite day of the
on
year,
your
Liar's
favorite
Day.
date of the year.
Yeah.
That was dictated to you by Oculus. They said we're done testing. You can release this date.
We went back and forth for a little while. We didn't make it in time for their deadline to make launch, which was fine actually, because given what we are, I was fine coming out a few days late, because then people want something new to do,
Absolutely.
right? And that worked out really well. So like a console cert or an iOS cert process, we went back and forth a little bit with some things that they wanted us to fix, like the hitch between the loading menu and loading into the studio for the first time if you watch the show. And on Oculus, we hide that with black. We hide it with black on the Vive now too, but we didn't prior to that point. They're like, makes people uncomfortable. Maybe you should get rid of that. It's just like 2 frames. So they finally I was on Giant Bomb's UPF, their Professional Friday show on Friday, thinking that I'd scheduled that thinking we'd already be out by then so I could talk about it. And I got a text that said, hey, they've cleared us. We can release now or Monday morning. So I was like, well, fuck, people are going to be using their headsets all weekend. They're going to be looking for stuff to do. Let's do it. Let's
Unleash
crank it.
the Foo.
Release the Kraken. So Foo is my company. We are building virtualized sound stages, basically. So we have built an infrastructure for setting up and recording and doing all the kind of front-loading work that you need to do for a live or live-to-tape performance. Like what we're doing right now. We're doing a live-to-tape performance. When Norm and I used to record in-depths, or when you guys record in-depths of product reviews, you do that too. You front-load the review, you front-load all the testing, you think about what you're going to say, you build an outline, and then Joey or somebody else sits in the other room and live mixes all the cameras, and at the end you have something that's pretty much ready to publish. You might have to go in and tweak a couple of things after that. But the benefit of this is that we can go in, set up these environments, and then record something using just the Vive, the headset in the hands, and have something that's ready to go in a really short period of time.
Performance capture
using
Real time.
off-the-shelf hardware that everybody's going to have in a few years.
over the internet.
Well, we did it live in a room. We shared
Right.
space.
But you can do it over the internet.
We have tested it over the internet. Latency is a little bit more of a problem because when you're well, I mean, you've been on a long distance phone call where you start to say something and the other person starts to say something, and then you both pause and then you both start again, and that's not great. So we did it and also it turns out in San Francisco it's much harder to get 3 20-foot by 20-foot spaces that we could record in than it is to get one 20 by 20-foot space. So we actually recorded the first episode with Jake and Sean from Campo Santo, the makers of Firewatch. They've been on Octobercast and some other stuff with us before. And we loaded it into a shared space, virtually and physically, and talked about their game for a little bit. And then we actually went inside an environment from their game where we could pick up props and talk about stuff and hand them off to each other. And they told stories about the making of their game that I think they'd probably forgotten because they hadn't looked at a lot of the stuff that we were talking about in a really long time. And it's been really exciting to watch people like try this for the first time because it sounds a little bit. I realize it sounds a little crazy.
The part that you just described about being in the tower, I think you're underselling because that is brand new. The fact that I, as a viewer, am not watching a 2D screen and watching people talk about it, but I'm there with you, and I can pick things up from the environment, and you guys are picking things up and holding them up, and I can grab them from you and take a look at myself and spin them around and get a better look at all those assets. I mean, it makes people appreciate game design. It makes people, want to check out that environment and maybe go back into the game. I wouldn't be surprised if they see a bump in game sales after this show. It's a very, very compelling experience.
Well, I mean, the goal I always had was to build something that does the thing that I know how to do, talk to people, and then make something that's also really natively virtual reality. So it would have been easy to get a 360 camera and sit down in a room and do a boring talk show on a set like this with the camera right there, and you could just look around and that's I'm sure some people like that.
And green screen in a game or something.
Yeah, like we could totally cheat it. But by putting us in that space and making it all completely interactive, like you can walk around. If you're in a Vive and you have a 15 by 15 foot space, you can walk around the whole tower. If you're in a Rift and you don't, or a Vive and you don't have a small space, you can teleport from spot to spot throughout the tower and look around. And the benefit of doing all of that stuff is like you said, people feel like they're actually there. So, as an example, when we're saying we didn't do this time, but we're doing it for the next recording, we're going to put a great big yellow ball, like green screen tennis ball style, where the viewer spawns in the studio. So that means people, when we're talking, our eyes will be drawn to that ball.
That's good.
And you'll notice, like if you're sitting in the studio now, Sean looks at what would be the camera in the traditional metaphor fairly regularly, and when you're in VR, he's actually making eye contact with you. And of course, we're not eye tracking or anything like that. We're doing it all with simple tricks and nonsense. But the effect is nonetheless really compelling. And it makes something that already would be very personal even more so, which is really exciting to me. But more importantly, this is really just the beginning. Like I want to build... Oh, go ahead.
Well, that was my question. Like, what percent is this of the master plan?
This is literally the easy... We looked at what we could execute with 4 people to make something that would be cool, that we thought would be cool. And this was the easiest thing on the list. So
there's a list.
So there's a giant long list. It's all in Slack. Are they advertising this week?
No.
Okay, never mind then. I mean, we're gonna bring on both higher levels of interactivity. Like if you look at this type of thing that we've built, that's somewhere between an adventure game and television, right? we have ideas that are all along that spectrum between those two things and levels of interactivity, from things that involve actual puzzle solving all the way down to things that you just sit and enjoy. Like one of the things that 50 people sent in is that you could do a VR riff tracks really easily. And yes, we have thought about that. That is a thing that we would like to do.
Right on.
Or maybe not. Riff Tracks is a specific set of people. Something similar to VR Riff Tracks. We could easily do an episode of The Talking Room in this medium, and because of I think I'm going to call it the Canny Valley. Nobody's really talked about this yet, but the idea that if you have something that looks and behaves like a person, even if it doesn't actually, if it just resembles a caricature, you treat it like a human in VR. Like
Personal space and that kind of thing.
Yeah, you want to keep your personal space the same. You make eye contact with it, even if you're not responding to it. I think that will convey a lot of the emotion of something like The Talking Room. So yeah, that's
not just for the participants in that discussion, but also for the viewers.
And that's the thing, is because you can get up and get really close to them and look at them more closely, you get a better. I mean, you control the camera in that case, which is something that's completely new.
So speaking of camera, I was curious what the post process is like for this.
Yeah.
Is there any editing involved? What are you doing after you shot it?
So there's a bunch of stuff that happens. Andre, who did the IK programming and has built a lot of the tools, has a tool that he calls the Performance Fixer, that basically we go through and look at the performances. And if there's any spot where like an elbow wigs out and starts doing chicken arms, which doesn't actually happen very much anymore, then we can kind of tweak that. You'll notice that there's a couple places in the sitting section where Sean, his hands kind of end up over here and his body twists to the right. We can kind of fix that stuff. A lot of this is stuff that we have to build tools for. There are easy ways to fix that. We just haven't had time to do them yet. So there's that. There's the performance fixing side. Sometimes we tweak the lighting a little bit if people moved out of the lights and we need to adjust that stuff. But that's just, it's just a game engine, so it's just Unity shaders. And Sindra, who's our character and environment guy, does that stuff for us. And then the audio files. Right now, we're not capturing broadcast quality audio because we're using Unity for something it's completely not designed for. So we capture bad quality, like Skype quality audio in the engine, and then we capture external audio with some boom mics that give us really, really directional, really close to the mouth pickups, so that we don't get a lot of crosstalk. So that we can then do positional audio. Right. So I spent probably 40 hours a couple of weeks ago figuring out exactly how to clean up that audio to the point that you didn't hear Jake on my recording and you didn't hear me on Jake and Sean's recordings.
Which hopefully is a problem you solve if you do it over the internet.
Well, I mean, if we do it over the internet, do it in different rooms. Like if we get to the point that we get to build a studio, I'm going to build 3 or 4 15-foot areas like in a recording studio, and everybody's going to be audio isolated.
It's funny because you have to build a studio for your virtual studios.
I think probably. I'd hope we wouldn't have to, but I think we're going to.
I mean, that makes logical sense to me because you're building a green screen, a motion track studio, just like the movie studios do.
Exactly.
But your environment is whatever you want it to be.
So we got a bunch of common questions. Can I run down
please.
them? One is what's up with the arms in the first part? And
wrists.
The wrists and the arms. There's it's the arms. So Andre is going to be mortified that I'm talking about this, so I apologize. But we didn't model shoulder blades. And if you think about the way your shoulder works, when you sit up ramrod straight, your shoulders are back, and you calibrate your arms based on that position, right? But then when you sit down, you kind of slouch forward a little bit, and your arms come forward, and then all of a sudden your arms get a little bit longer. And once your arm extends beyond the maximum length of our arm, because we don't model the shoulder blades, there's no way for us to correct. To slouch that shoulder forward and give the arm a little bit of slack so that it can be neutral. So they just get fully extended and look kind of like creepy robot arms. We're going to fix that. It's one of the first things we're going to fix after we launch, and we'll be able to do a point release that actually fixes the animation so it looks right when we do that. Because all we're doing is passing vectors right now.
So we'll be able to watch the same show and it'll look different?
It'll look better when we update it. People ask if there's going to be Gear VR cardboard and PlayStation VR versions. We haven't talked to Sony yet officially. I would love to put it on PlayStation VR. It should be a relatively simple port from everything I understand, in the same way that moving from Vive to Oculus was relatively simple. Moving to gear and cardboard is a lot more complex because we have to build tools that bake down the IK animations into actual animations. We have to change lighting and stuff like that. So it's a fairly substantial process. But we want to do that as well. And I know that there's a lot of people that have gears, especially when the Galaxy S7 comes out, that will want to take a look at this and want to be able to experience this.
Phone's
stuff.
out, but the gears haven't been shipping yet for a lot of people.
So, and then the last thing is, what are we doing next? And right now, basically, I'm figuring out how we're going to pay for this stuff, and we got to hire some people, and we've got to get space because it turns out it's a real pain in the ass to carry 3 computers, 3 Vives, all the stuff that makes the Vive work, all the audio recording stuff to like wherever I can beg, borrow, or steal space. Thank you to Guidebook, where Dave Snyder and Sean Kuntz work, for letting us use their office to shoot the first part of that interview, because it was amazing that they let us come in there and hugely helpful. So yeah, that's where we're at.
Cool. And people can find out more information on
foovr.com.
There you go.
FOO. A lot of people asked what the name meant, but I'm not telling.
Oh. Well, you said before.
I did say before.
Oh.
You're a fan of placeholder names.
I like placeholder names. Foo is a programmer placeholder. Anyway.
I think that wraps it up for the VR Minute. There's an ongoing Kickstarter right now that just launched, VR Lens Lab. It's lens adapters for Rift and Vive, but the Kickstarter isn't selling prescription lenses. I think you have to go through them directly once it finishes. But we speculated, would people be making lens adapters so you don't have to wear contacts or glasses in them? And the answer is yes. So,
and they just kind of snap into the front, right? Is the thought?
So hopefully we'll be able to get some of those in when they're ready with prescriptions, so I can use them without wearing glasses in the headsets.
On the subject of modifications, I wonder if somebody will make a modified Vive headset strap or some
that's rigid.
Yeah, some sort of contraption that better grabs the back of your skull, because that's where I feel like I want more support, and I would back any Kickstarter that gave that a shot.
I would love to have a rigid strap on the Vive after having the Oculus One and getting it and figuring out how to set it right.
Yeah.
And integrated headphones, it turns out.
Outside of the VR Minute, what do we got? Things we've been testing. I've been using the Amazon Echo Dot, loving it. It's a
really?
great product. I think the surprising thing is not only how small it is, but that it has usable speakers, not only for interfacing with Alexa, but also for listening to music and podcasts. So I think it's unfortunate they're not selling that individually right now. You have to have an Echo or a Fire TV to buy them. But if you have a Fire TV, you don't have an Echo, and you have smart things or Nest in your home, then paying $90 for the Dot is a good purchase.
I bought a laptop.
Tell us about your gaming laptop.
So I bought a laptop. I'm getting ready to go on a road trip with the Vive. So I bought I bought a big giant bag and a big gaming laptop with a desktop GPU in it.
How expensive is that laptop, Will?
$3,100.
Whoa! Who makes it?
There's a couple. Sager makes one. MSI makes one. But remember last year we talked about the GeForce 980 coming to mobile machines. It is like a 17-inch laptop, and it's the biggest. It's right up there with those old Dell XPS machines from the late 2000s. It is enormous.
Heavy?
It's super duper heavy. It's still probably an order of magnitude lighter than what I traveled with before.
Which was a case.
Which was a case and a monitor.
Yeah. Good point.
Keyboard, mouse, all of the stuff that you have to carry with that is built into a laptop. So it's compelling in that regard. And it means that theoretically I can get down to one bag and a tripod bag, which means I can take it on the plane pretty easily without having to check stuff.
Are you hitting frame rate?
I haven't gotten it to work with the Vive yet.
Okay.
So it's been a fairly substantial hassle getting it set up. It is wired the right way. There are laptops that use these processors that don't have, the HDMI port has to be wired into the desktop GPU, not into the mobile GPU, because it also has a 970M or something in there. I think I maybe got a dud because I'm getting pink squares on the DisplayPort screen on the screen occasionally. I'm not feeling super confident I'm going to keep this. I might do the big machine, the small form factor for one more time, and then get a Razer Blade with the external GPU box when the time comes for the next round. But I just wanted to talk about this thing because I never thought I would buy a 17-inch ridiculous laptop again, and here we are. So it's the MSI GT72S Dominator Pro. The battery lasted about 35 minutes when I was trying to run video games on it yesterday, and like if I can get it to work, it will be an incredible back saver, even though it's like a 13-pound laptop or something ridiculous. So there we are.
Wow. And that wraps it up. Anything else you've been testing, Jeremy?
I've been testing some software for my pinball, my virtual pinball simulator.
Yes.
And there's software that somebody on the tested forums pointed me to that's surprisingly kind of hard to find, but it basically turns a Teensy LC or 3.1 into an Xbox 360 gamepad. It completely ground up. It looks like it to the computer, which is phenomenal because it means that latency that we were getting when we were playing the pinball, like it just
that little
maybe
software
a couple
layer,
millisecond delay, gone. It's now 100%, and it's looking like I'll be able to support Rumble feedback directly as if it was the gamepad. So I'm pretty excited about that development. The programmer's name is Zachary Little. Turns out he's a fan of Tested, so he's actually helping me expand his code base to support Rumble and add this analog support. And I'm having a ton of fun doing that. I'm looking forward to releasing all this.
Man, I love playing your pinball machine.
Yeah, man.
It's super cool.
That's awesome. And then one final note, we have some news. We have a new member of the Tested team. Video just went out today. I hope you guys have watched it. You may have seen her videos on YouTube and her robot. She is the queen of shitty machines, Simone Yatz, I think is how you pronounce her name. It's spelled Kiertz, but I think that's the wrong way to pronounce it. Is the newest member of the Tested family. Will,
I love her robots.
Your replacement has been found.
Oh, she's on full time?
We're getting there.
Okay.
She's still in Sweden right now, but we're working on getting her to San Francisco. She just did a collaboration build with Adam, building her latest shitty machine, pointless machine. It's wonderful. And we have some other stuff coming from her in the next couple of weeks. And hopefully you'll be seeing her in this office very soon. So welcome, Simone. If you haven't seen her stuff, please check out her YouTube channel also, which she's still running. Check out that video, and we'll get her on the podcast eventually.
The lipstick robot is hilarious and amazing.
They're all good.
They're all really good.
So thanks for watching, and thank you guys for joining this week. It's an especially long episode. We have a lot more to talk about in VR, more thoughts once we have more time with it. But thanks for listening, and let's just go with the same outro as last
You
week.
always use?
Send more.
Hi there, I didn't see you.
There's a fine line between topless
Under.
and side boob.
Under. Bye.